Have you ever noticed how the most powerful presence in the room is often the quietest one? Not the person making the most noise or demanding the most attention, but the one who carries themselves with an unshakable calm, a deep sense of purpose that needs no external validation. This isn't a passive quality, it's a form of strength. It's what the ancient Stoics called a state of quiet dominance, a profound inner authority that shapes your reality from the inside out, allowing you to navigate chaos with a steady hand and a clear mind. It's the antithesis of the loud, frantic striving we so often see, and it all begins with the thoughts you choose to affirm each day. This journey into Stoic wisdom is about more than just fleeting motivation. It's a fundamental rewiring of your mental and emotional framework, drawing directly from the timeless insights of philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire with this very mindset, and Epictetus, who taught that our power lies not in controlling events but in mastering our judgments of them. They understood that true dominance isn't about overpowering others, it's about achieving a supreme command over your own inner world. Imagine facing your day not with anxiety or reactivity, but with a grounded, unbreakable composure. Think about the last time a sudden problem threw you completely off balance, triggering stress, frustration, or even anger. What if, in that very moment, you had a mental anchor, a set of deeply held beliefs that immediately centered you and provided clarity? This is the practical power we're unlocking together. The affirmations we will explore are not simple positive thinking. They are philosophical principles distilled into daily mantras, each one designed to fortify your resilience and cultivate that quiet dominance in the face of life's inevitable challenges. They are tools to help you respond instead of react, to lead with poise when others are losing theirs, and to build a life characterized not by what happens to you, but by how you choose to meet it. This is about building a foundation so solid that external circumstances simply cannot shake your core sense of self. Throughout this video, we will walk through 25 of these powerful Stoic affirmations, each one a key to unlocking a more resilient, confident, and empowered you. We'll break down their origins in ancient texts and, more importantly, how you can apply them to modern situations, from a difficult conversation at work to managing personal setbacks. This is your invitation to go beyond surface-level self-help and connect with a philosophy that has guided leaders, thinkers, and everyday people for centuries toward a life of virtue and unshakable peace. Get ready to discover practical phrases you can start using today to consciously cultivate a mindset of quiet confidence and deliberate control, transforming not just how you handle stress, but how you show up in every aspect of your life. And so we arrive at our first and perhaps most foundational affirmation, a principle that serves as the bedrock of the entire Stoic philosophy. I control my reactions, not external events. This simple statement cuts directly to the heart of what it means to cultivate quiet dominance. The world outside of us is a constant stream of unpredictability, traffic jams, critical comments from a colleague, sudden changes in plans. These events are not within our command, but what is always within our command, what remains our sovereign territory no matter the external storm, is our inner citadel, our judgment, our assent, our reaction. This is the famous dichotomy of control, articulated so clearly by the former slave-turned-philosopher Epictetus. He taught that the path to freedom and tranquility begins with sorting the world into two categories, what is up to us and what is not. Our opinions, our impulses, our desires, and our aversions are up to us. Everything else, our property, our reputation, our health, even the actions of our own family, is not entirely up to us. When we pour our energy into trying to control the uncontrollable, we inevitably meet with frustration, anxiety, and a sense of powerlessness. This affirmation is the mental tool that corrects that misdirected effort. It is a gentle but firm reminder to pull your focus back from the chaos you cannot command and to place it squarely on the one thing you can, yourself. Let's make this concrete. Imagine you're on your way to an important meeting and you hit a standstill traffic jam. The old, automatic reaction might be a surge of panic, followed by anger, perhaps pounding the steering wheel, and a flood of stressful thoughts about the consequences of being late. Now, insert the affirmation, "I control my reactions, not external events." The traffic is the external event. It is not up to you, but your reaction is. With this conscious shift, you reclaim your power. You can choose to use the unexpected time to listen to an informative podcast, to sit in silence and gather your thoughts for the meeting, or to simply practice observing your initial panic without letting it consume you. The situation hasn't changed, but your entire experience of it has transformed. You are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are the author of your response. This is quiet dominance in action, not screaming at the traffic, but exercising a calm, deliberate authority over your own mind. Or consider an unexpected professional setback, a project cancellation, or a negative performance review. The initial sting is real, but the affirmation guides you to the Stoic response. The setback itself is an external event, a piece of the world's unfolding that you cannot rewind. But your reaction, whether you descend into self-pity and blame, or whether you choose to analyze the feedback with detached curiosity, extract a lesson, and resolve to improve, that is your domain. Repeating this phrase daily is like strength training for your mental resilience. It rewires the neural pathways that typically lead to emotional hijacking, forging new connections that favor reasoned response over frantic reaction. Each time you use it, you are building emotional muscle memory, training yourself to default to a state of composed power. This is how you begin to build an inner fortress, not one of cold indifference, but of warm, unshakable strength that allows you to engage with the world from a place of choice, not chaos. To truly integrate this first affirmation into the fabric of your being, it helps to pair the mental reminder with tangible practices. One of the most powerful is a simple mindfulness exercise you can do anywhere, anytime. The next time you feel a surge of frustration or anxiety, when your computer freezes or you receive a difficult email instead of immediately reacting, take one deliberate breath and silently label what is happening. Say to yourself, "This is an external event." Then, with your next breath, affirm, "My reaction is my own." This tiny pause creates a critical space between the stimulus and your response, a space where your choice lives. It's in that space that quiet dominance is born. You are not trying to suppress the emotion. You are simply observing it, acknowledging its presence, and then consciously deciding how you will or will not act upon it. This practice transforms the affirmation from a mere phrase into a lived experience. For a deeper, more structured approach, consider a dedicated journaling practice inspired directly by the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius himself did not write his meditations for publication. He wrote them as a private journal, a series of reminders to himself on how to live virtuously while leading the Roman Empire through plague, war, and constant political intrigue. In the midst of commanding legions on the front lines, he would retreat to his tent and write passages that reinforced his control over his own mind, reflecting on his anger, his judgments, and his duties. You can emulate this by keeping a simple reaction log. Each evening, spend a few minutes writing down one or two challenging situations from your day. For each one, briefly note the external event and then your internal and external reaction. Then ask yourself, where did I succeed in focusing on my reaction? Where did I fail and allow the external event to dictate my state of mind? Over time, this log becomes a powerful mirror, revealing your triggers and celebrating your progress, turning abstract philosophy into measurable personal growth. Of course, the most common challenge is remembering to use this tool precisely when you need it most, in the heat of the moment. When emotions run high, our higher cognitive functions often go offline, and we operate on autopilot, which is usually a recipe for reactive behavior. This is a normal human glitch, not a personal failing. To overcome it, you must practice during the calm periods. Just as a fire drill is practiced when there is no fire, you need to rehearse your stoic response when you are feeling centered and relaxed. Set a random reminder on your phone a few times a day with the affirmation, "I control my reactions." When it pops up, no matter what you're doing, take that one breath and mentally run through a recent minor annoyance, applying the principle. This builds the neural pathway so that it becomes the default route your brain takes under stress. Another strategy is to create a physical anchor, like a specific ring or wristband. Every time you see or touch it, let it serve as a subtle prompt to check in with your inner state and reaffirm your sovereignty. Mastering this single affirmation is arguably the most critical step in your entire Stoic journey, because it lays the essential foundation for every principle that follows. Without the fundamental understanding and practice of the dichotomy of control, the other affirmations lack their grounding force. This is the practice that cultivates the core self-awareness and discipline required for quiet dominance. It is the mental pivot upon which everything else turns. Your ability to practice gratitude, to embrace obstacles, to act with integrity. All of it depends on your capacity to first distinguish between what is yours to command and what is not. When you own this principle, you stop being a leaf tossed in the storm of externals and become the steady tree, with roots sunk deep into the soil of your own reasoned choice. Building directly on that foundation of internal control, we arrive at a second affirmation that fundamentally redefines the source of your strength and self-worth. Virtue is my only true good. While the first principle establishes the arena of your power, this one defines the very currency of that power. The Stoics argued with unwavering conviction that our character, our moral excellence, is the sole thing in life that is genuinely and unconditionally good. Everything else we typically chase: money, social status, comfort, even our health, they classified as preferred indifference. Now, that's a startling term. It doesn't mean these things are bad or that you shouldn't prefer health over sickness or prosperity over poverty. Of course you should. But they are indifferent in the grand scheme of your moral worth because they are not entirely within your control, and they can be used for either good or ill. A wealthy person can be virtuous or corrupt. A person in poverty can be dignified or desperate. The money itself is neutral. What matters, what constitutes a life well lived, is the virtue with which you navigate whatever circumstances you are given. This affirmation is your compass for that navigation. It points you toward the four cardinal virtues that the Stoics, borrowing from earlier Greek philosophy, held as the pillars of a flourishing life: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Wisdom is the practical knowledge of what is good, bad, and indifferent. It's the discernment to see a situation clearly and understand the right action to take, free from the distortion of ego or fear. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act rightly in spite of it, the moral bravery to stand up for a principle, to have a difficult conversation, or to endure hardship without complaint. Justice is your duty to your fellow human beings. It's about acting with fairness, kindness, and contributing to the common good in your interactions, both large and small. And temperance is self-regulation and moderation, exercising restraint over your impulses, your desires, and your anger, ensuring that you are the master of your appetites, not their slave. Let's translate this from ancient philosophy into your Tuesday afternoon. Imagine you're in a team meeting at work, and a colleague presents an idea that you know has a critical flaw, a flaw that could lead to a significant failure down the line. Speaking up might make you unpopular. It could create tension or even derail the project timeline, which is a preferred indifferent. Staying silent would be easier, preserving social harmony. The affirmation virtue is my only true good cuts through that noise. It reminds you that the true good here is not comfort or popularity, but the practice of wisdom, sharing your accurate assessment, and the practice of justice, acting for the benefit of the team and the project's success, even if it's uncomfortable. Your quiet dominance shines through not in winning the argument, but in having the courage to voice a necessary truth with respect and clarity. The outcome of the meeting is an external. Your commitment to virtue is your internal, unassailable good. Or consider a more personal scenario. You're trying to manage your finances or your health. The temptation to make an impulsive purchase or to skip a workout for immediate gratification is strong. These are moments for the virtue of temperance. Repeating virtue is my only true good shifts your focus from the fleeting pleasure of the purchase or the temporary comfort of the couch to the deeper, more enduring satisfaction of self-mastery. You are choosing the good of a disciplined character over the indifferent of a momentary comfort. This is how you build quiet dominance. By consistently aligning your actions with your principles, you send a powerful message to your own psyche that you are reliable, that you are in command. This internal integrity breeds a confidence that no external compliment or acquisition can ever provide. This profound shift in focus is what makes this affirmation so liberating. When you internalize that your worth is determined by your character and not by your resume, your social media likes, or your material possessions, you become incredibly resilient. The opinions of others lose their sting because your primary audience is your own moral compass. A critical comment might hurt, but it cannot damage your core self if you know you acted with integrity. A professional setback might be disappointing, but it cannot define you if your self-worth is rooted in the courage you showed and the wisdom you gained. This is the source of a truly quiet dominance, a poise that comes from being anchored in something unshakable and entirely your own. You are no longer tossed about by the waves of external validation. You are the deep, steady current flowing according to its own purpose. To weave this affirmation into your daily life, practice a simple evening review. As you reflect on your day, don't ask, "What did I achieve?" or "What did I acquire?" Instead, ask the Stoic questions: where did I practice wisdom today? Did I have the courage to do what was right? Was I fair and just in my dealings with others? Did I exercise temperance in my desires and reactions? This reframes your entire perception of a successful day. A day where you lost a client but spoke the truth with courage becomes a victory. A day where you felt anger but practiced restraint becomes a triumph of character. This practice solidifies the belief that your virtue is your only true good, transforming it from a philosophical concept into the living, breathing core of your identity. It is this unwavering commitment to your inner moral fortress that allows you to move through the world with a quiet, unassailable authority that nothing outside of you can ever take away. Now let's move to a third affirmation that truly unlocks a superpower for resilience and growth. I embrace obstacles as opportunities. This is where Stoicism transforms from a passive philosophy of endurance into an active, dynamic approach to life. It's the practical application of the profound Stoic principle known as amor fati, a love of one's fate. This isn't about merely tolerating hardship or grudgingly accepting difficulty. It's about actively welcoming everything that happens, especially the challenges and setbacks, as if you had chosen it yourself. Why would anyone do that? Because the Stoics saw with brilliant clarity that obstacles are not just random misfortunes. They are the very raw material life provides for us to build our strength, our character, and our wisdom. A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor, and a life without resistance never forges a resilient, dominant spirit. Consider the Roman philosopher Seneca, one of the wealthiest and most powerful men of his time, who was suddenly exiled to the harsh, remote island of Corsica by the Emperor Claudius. He was ripped from his life of influence and luxury and forced into a primitive existence. A lesser man would have crumbled into bitterness and despair. But what did Seneca do? He reframed the entire experience. In his writings from exile, he didn't lament his fate, he celebrated it. He saw it as a gift of uninterrupted time for philosophical reflection, writing, and strengthening his inner self. He used the obstacle of exile as an opportunity to produce some of his most profound work. He didn't just endure his fate, he fell in love with it, extracting purpose from punishment. This is the ultimate power move, to take what life intends as a blow and use it as a stepping stone. Let's bring this home to a modern context. Imagine you face a sudden job loss. The initial shock and fear are completely understandable. The automatic reaction is to see it as a catastrophe, a failure, a massive setback. But when you activate the affirmation, "I embrace obstacles as opportunities," your entire perspective shifts. You begin to ask different questions. Instead of "Why did this happen to me?" you ask, "What door has this closed so that a better one can open? What skills have I been meaning to learn that I now have the time to master? Is this the universe's way of pushing me out of a comfortable but stagnant role and into a path that is more aligned with my true talents?" This reframing doesn't negate the difficulty, but it infuses it with purpose. The obstacle of unemployment becomes the opportunity for reinvention, for networking in new circles, for building a career that is truly yours. This mindset has profound psychological benefits that are backed by modern science. When you view a challenge as a threat, your body floods with cortisol and adrenaline, triggering the stress response that narrows your focus and hampers creative thinking. You become reactive and anxious, but when you consciously reframe that same challenge as an opportunity, you activate the brain's approach-oriented systems. This reduces stress and opens up your cognitive resources, enhancing your problem-solving abilities and creativity. You start to see multiple paths forward instead of just a single dead end. This is how embracing obstacles builds quiet dominance. It allows you to remain calm and strategic in the midst of turmoil while others are succumbing to panic. You are not being defeated by the problem, you are being energized by the puzzle it presents. Think about a personal conflict, a disagreement with a friend or partner. Our instinct is often to avoid the tension, to see the argument as a destructive force. But with this affirmation, you can choose to see the conflict as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to practice deep listening, to understand a perspective different from your own, to communicate your own needs more clearly, and to strengthen the relationship by working through a difficulty together. The obstacle of friction becomes the opportunity for deeper connection and emotional intelligence. Every time you do this, you are not just solving a problem, you are building the muscle of resilience, teaching your nervous system that challenges are not signals to retreat, but invitations to grow stronger and more capable. To truly integrate this affirmation, practice a simple but powerful mental exercise the next time a small annoyance arises: a missed bus, a rainy day that ruins your outdoor plans, a cancelled appointment. Instead of sighing in frustration, immediately ask yourself, how can this be good? What hidden opportunity is here? The missed bus becomes 10 minutes of unexpected quiet to read a book. The rainy day becomes a perfect excuse to tackle that cozy indoor project you've been postponing. The cancelled appointment frees up an hour to call an old friend. By training on the small stuff, you build the neural circuitry to handle the big stuff, the major setbacks, the real heartbreaks, with the same constructive, forward-looking attitude. This is how you cultivate a quiet dominance that is unimpressed by chaos, because you have learned the secret that within every single obstacle lies the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit, waiting for you to have the wisdom and the courage to water it. This fourth affirmation, "My peace is not dependent on others," moves us from shaping our inner world to understanding how to protect it from the most common source of disruption: the words, actions, and moods of the people around us. It's the practical extension of the dichotomy of control, applying it directly to our relationships and social interactions. The Stoics called this ideal autarky or self-sufficiency, and it's a cornerstone of quiet dominance. It means your emotional center of gravity is located firmly within yourself, not in the ever-shifting external landscape of other people's behavior. This isn't about building walls or becoming emotionally cold. It's about building a foundation so solid within yourself that you can engage with others fully and compassionately without being thrown off balance by their negativity, their criticism, or even their praise. Think about the last time a casual criticism from a colleague ruined your entire morning, or how a loved one's bad mood instantly put you on edge, draining your own energy and focus. In these moments, we have essentially handed over the remote control for our inner peace to someone else, and they are casually changing the channel. This affirmation is the act of taking that remote back. It's a declaration of emotional sovereignty. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who knew the ultimate powerlessness of being a slave, put it with brutal clarity. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. The other person's action is external, but your reaction, the sting of the insult, the rise of anger, is your own judgment at work. By repeating "my peace is not dependent on others," you are not denying the social nature of our lives. You are training your mind to pause and question that initial, automatic judgment that someone else's behavior must dictate your state of being. Let's take a concrete example. Imagine you've poured your heart into a project presentation, and during the feedback session, a senior manager dismisses your ideas with a flippant, unconstructive comment. The immediate, visceral reaction is a flood of heat to your face, a clenching in your stomach, and a torrent of defensive or self-critical thoughts. This is the crucial fork in the road. Without this Stoic tool, you might spend the rest of the day seething, replaying the comment, your productivity shattered, or you might fire back with a sharp email you'll later regret. But with the affirmation active in your mind, you create a space. You feel the sting, you acknowledge it, and then you consciously remind yourself, "My peace is not dependent on his approval." This doesn't mean you ignore the feedback. It means you process it from a place of calm power. You can assess it objectively. Is there any useful kernel in this, even if poorly delivered? If not, can I simply let it go as his opinion, not a verdict on my worth? Your response, if one is needed, then becomes measured, professional, and graceful. You haven't been emotionally hijacked. Your quiet dominance is preserved because you responded from principle, not from a wounded ego. Now consider a more intimate setting, a recurring argument with a partner or family member. These conflicts are often so charged because our sense of peace and validation is tightly wrapped up in the other person's actions and words. When they act in a way we find hurtful, our entire world feels unsettled. Here, the affirmation works like an anchor in a stormy sea. Before or even during a tense conversation, silently affirming "my peace is not dependent on them" allows you to de-escalate your own nervous system. It gives you the mental clarity to listen without immediately preparing a counterattack. You can hear their frustration without absorbing it as your own. This is where the crucial distinction between empathy and enmeshment comes into play. True empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. Enmeshment is when their feelings become your feelings, blurring the boundaries of where they end and you begin. This Stoic practice fosters the former while preventing the latter. You can be compassionate and present for their struggle without letting it dismantle your own inner stability. This is the foundation for truly healthy interactions. You engage from a place of wholeness, not neediness. This practice of emotional self-sufficiency is what allows you to lead with consistency and grace, especially in professional environments. A leader whose mood swings with every piece of good or bad news creates an atmosphere of anxiety and uncertainty. But a leader who maintains a steady, composed demeanor, not because they are unaffected, but because they have mastered the art of not being dependent on externals for their peace, inspires immense confidence and loyalty. Their team knows that challenges will be met with a calm, analytical mind, not a reactive, emotional outburst. This is quiet dominance in its most visible and influential form. You become a stable pole in the chaos, and people are naturally drawn to that stability. They trust your judgment because they see that it is not clouded by a desperate need for their approval or a fearful reaction to their dissent. To weave this affirmation into the fabric of your daily life, practice a simple pre-engagement ritual. Before walking into a potentially difficult meeting or a social gathering, take a moment to center yourself with a deep breath and consciously state, "My peace is mine to hold." This sets your intention. Afterwards, conduct a brief review. Ask yourself, where did I successfully keep my peace today? Where did I let someone else's energy or words dictate my state? This isn't about self-criticism, it's about building awareness. For a more advanced practice, you can even use visualization. Picture your inner peace as a bright, steady flame in your chest. When someone directs negativity your way, imagine their words or mood as a gust of wind. Rather than letting the wind extinguish your flame, visualize it passing around you, your flame flickering momentarily but remaining lit, strong, and self-sustaining. This mental rehearsal builds the neural pathways that make the real-life application automatic. When you truly internalize that your peace is an internally generated state, you stop seeking it in compliments, achievements, or the perfect behavior of others. You realize you carry it with you always, a quiet, unassailable source of strength that allows you to navigate the world with a grace that is entirely your own. This fifth affirmation, "I am content with what I have," invites us into one of the most transformative yet counterintuitive practices in the Stoic toolkit, a practice known as negative visualization, or in its original Greek, premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. At first glance, this sounds pessimistic, even morbid. Why would you actively sit and imagine losing everything you hold dear? Your health, your loved ones, your career, your possessions? The Stoic answer is as profound as it is practical. Not to breed fear, but to shatter the veil of taking things for granted and to ignite a blazing, heartfelt appreciation for the present moment. This isn't about preparing for doom. It's about vaccinating yourself against the insidious disease of more, the constant, restless craving for the next thing that leaves you perpetually unsatisfied with what is already here. The affirmation, "I am content with what I have," is the steady-state conclusion you reach after regularly engaging in this mental exercise. It's the deep, resonant calm that comes from truly knowing the value of what you already possess, precisely because you have honestly confronted its potential absence. The roots of this practice run deep, championed by philosophers like Musonius Rufus, a teacher who placed immense emphasis on living a life of frugality and sufficiency. He argued relentlessly that luxury and excess were not just unnecessary for happiness, but were active impediments to it, weakening our character and inflaming our desires. He taught that by deliberately choosing simplicity and routinely reminding ourselves of how little we truly need to be happy, we build a fortress of self-sufficiency. For Musonius, a simple meal, humble clothing, and a modest dwelling were not signs of poverty but of philosophical wealth. They were proof that one's happiness was not leased from external circumstances. This affirmation is the modern echo of his teaching, a daily declaration of independence from the frantic chase for more that defines so much of our consumer culture. It's a quiet rebellion against the engineered dissatisfaction of advertising and the exhausting treadmill of social comparison. Let's bring this powerfully into a modern context. Think about the constant barrage of messages we receive urging us that happiness is just one purchase away: a newer phone, a faster car, a bigger house. Or consider the subtle torture of social media, where we are presented with a curated highlight reel of everyone else's lives, triggering a quiet sense of lack in our own. We scroll through images of dream vacations, career promotions, and perfect families, and suddenly our own good life can feel inadequate. This is where the deliberate practice of negative visualization becomes your shield. Imagine for just a moment each day that your current situation was taken from you. Picture losing the job you sometimes complain about and the financial security it provides. Visualize the absence of the partner whose minor habits might occasionally irritate you. Contemplate what life would be like without the simple ability to see, to walk, to breathe easily. This isn't meant to frighten you, but to jolt you into a visceral recognition of the incredible wealth you currently hold. When you open your eyes from that brief meditation, the ordinary is drenched in a new light. Your job becomes a gift of purpose and provision. Your partner becomes a treasure. Your health becomes a miracle. The affirmation "I am content with what I have" then flows not as a statement of resignation, but as an explosion of gratitude for a reality you have chosen to see clearly. To integrate this into your daily routine, start with a simple gratitude list, but take it a step further with a Stoic twist. Each evening, don't just write down 3 things you're grateful for. For one of them, apply negative visualization. For instance, if you're grateful for your home, take a moment to vividly imagine what it would be like to lose it, the discomfort, the uncertainty, the loss of safety. Then, when you return to the present reality of your warm, secure room, the feeling of gratitude will be exponentially deeper and more authentic. This practice rewires your brain's attentional patterns, training it to notice and appreciate the abundance that is already present, rather than constantly scanning for what is missing. Another practical tip is to practice mindful consumption. Before any non-essential purchase, pause and ask yourself the Stoic question: is this a need or a want? Will this truly contribute to my virtue and contentment, or is it merely a temporary balm for an inner restlessness? This creates a habit of intentional living where you consume by choice, not by compulsion. When you consistently live this affirmation, you cultivate a quiet dominance that is utterly unshakable in the face of societal pressure. Envy and the desperate desire for more simply lose their grip on you. You are no longer thrown into turmoil by your neighbor's new car or your colleague's promotion, because your internal scorecard is not based on comparative wealth, but on the profound personal metric of gratitude and sufficiency. This doesn't mean you lack ambition or stop pursuing goals. It means your ambition is channeled from a place of wholeness, not lack. You strive for improvement not because you hate your current life, but because you love it so much you wish to express your potential within it. This is the stable, satisfied mindset of quiet dominance. A person who is genuinely happy with what they have is a person who cannot be manipulated by advertisers, intimidated by rivals, or destabilized by temporary setbacks. Their power comes from a deep, internal wellspring of contentment that no external lack or excess can ever diminish. Now we turn to a principle that serves as the engine of your quiet dominance, transforming intention into powerful, deliberate action. I act with purpose, not on impulse. This affirmation is the active expression of the Stoic virtue of temperance, which is far more than just resisting a dessert or an extra drink. True Stoic temperance is the comprehensive discipline of self-regulation, the mastery over our impulses, our rash judgments, and our reactive emotions, so that every action we take is a conscious choice aligned with our deepest values. An impulse is a raw, untamed signal from the primitive parts of our brain, a demand for immediate satisfaction or a knee-jerk reaction to a perceived threat. It screams, "Send that angry email now," or "buy that thing you can't afford," or "avoid that difficult conversation." Purpose, by contrast, is the calm, deliberate voice of your reasoned choice, the part of you that considers the long-term consequences and asks, "Is this action truly in service of the person I want to become?" Every time you choose purpose over impulse, you are not just making a better decision, you are actively sculpting a character of immense inner strength. The critical tool for making this shift is the intentional pause. In that sliver of time between a triggering event and your response lies your entire power to choose. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this, writing in his private journal to never be swept away by the force of an impression, but to pause and unpack the situation. He practiced creating a gap between what he felt and what he did. This pause is where you deploy the affirmation. When you feel the heat of anger rising or the seductive pull of an immediate gratification, you consciously insert the phrase, "I act with purpose, not on impulse." This simple act of mental labeling creates the necessary distance, allowing you to transition from being a passenger on a runaway emotional train to becoming the engineer in control of the locomotive. One of the most powerful techniques to create this pause and gain immediate perspective is what the Stoics called the view from above. When you are mired in a stressful situation, a heated argument, a high-pressure deadline, your view is myopic, limited to the immediate frustrations and fears. The view from above is a mental exercise where you consciously pull your perspective back, as if you were rising high above the earth. From this vantage point, you see your city as a tiny map, the people as minuscule specks, and your current problem as one small event in the vast, unfolding tapestry of human history. This isn't meant to trivialize your concerns, but to contextualize them. That critical comment from your boss, which felt like a world-ending crisis moments before, now appears in its true proportion, a small, momentary event. This shift in perspective drains the situation of its emotional urgency, creating the calm mental space needed to ask the purposeful question, what is the wise, courageous, and just thing to do here, instead of simply reacting to the provocation? Consider a common business scenario. You receive an email from a client that is unfairly critical and accusatory. The impulsive reaction is visceral. Your heart pounds, your jaw tightens, and your fingers fly to the keyboard to fire off a defensive, equally sharp reply. This is the path of least resistance, fueled by the impulse to defend your ego and retaliate. But this single impulsive action can destroy a professional relationship built over years, burn a bridge, and tarnish your reputation for professionalism. Now imagine applying the affirmation. You feel the urge to react, but you pause. You close your eyes for a moment and take the view from above, seeing this one email in the context of your entire career and life. You then draft your response, but you do not send it. You let it sit for an hour or even until the next morning. When you return to it, you almost certainly see ways to rephrase it, to address the core concern without the emotional charge, to be firm yet respectful. Your purposeful action, born from self-control, has not only preserved a valuable relationship but has also demonstrated a level of poise that commands quiet respect. This discipline extends powerfully into our personal lives and finances. The impulse to make an extravagant, unplanned purchase. The buzz of retail therapy provides a fleeting high followed often by lingering regret and financial stress. The impulse to snap at a loved one over a minor irritation offers a momentary release of tension at the cost of creating lasting hurt. In both cases, the affirmation is your anchor. Before clicking buy now on that expensive gadget, you pause and ask, is this purchase aligned with my long-term financial goals and my values, or is it merely serving a short-term emotional need? Before speaking harsh words, you pause and consider, is my goal here to vent my frustration, or is it to maintain a loving and respectful connection? Choosing purpose in these micro moments is you build a life of integrity where your actions consistently reflect your principles. This is the very essence of quiet dominance. It's the cumulative effect of countless small, purposeful choices that forge a character others find reliably strong and trustworthy. When you consistently practice this, you cultivate a reputation that becomes a form of social currency. People learn that you are not governed by your moods or impulses. They see that you can handle pressure without fracturing, receive criticism without crumbling, and face temptation without being derailed. This reliability builds immense trust. In a professional setting, you become the person others want on a high-stakes team or in a leadership role, because they know you will not make a reckless decision under pressure. In your personal life, you become the rock your friends and family can depend on, the one who provides stability rather than drama. This earned respect is far more powerful and enduring than any authority demanded by title or volume. Your quiet dominance grows not from telling people you are in control, but from demonstrating it moment by moment through every purposeful action you take. This seventh affirmation, I see the humanity in everyone, invites us to broaden our circle of concern from our immediate selves to encompass the entire human race, a beautiful Stoic principle known as cosmopolitanism. The word itself comes from the Greek for citizen of the world, and it represents a radical shift in perspective. The Stoics believed that we are all fundamentally connected, not by blood or nationality, but by our shared capacity for reason and our common participation in a single, universal community. To see the humanity in someone is to look past the superficial labels of enemy or rival, incompetent or irritant, and to recognize a fellow traveler on the difficult journey of life. A person who, just like you, is doing what they believe is right based on their own flawed understanding and experiences. When you consciously adopt this lens, you begin to disarm the very mechanisms of anger and judgment that cause so much of our interpersonal turmoil. Marcus Aurelius, perhaps the most powerful man in the world during his reign, constantly drilled this idea into his own mind. In his meditations, he writes extensively about dealing with difficult and offensive people, and his advice is startlingly compassionate. He tells himself that when someone wrongs him, he should immediately recall that person's perspective. He would note, they are acting in this way because they believe it to be the right or necessary thing to do. He reminds himself that it is impossible for a person to do what they genuinely believe is wrong. We are all guided by our own, often mistaken, judgments. He even goes a step further, suggesting we ask ourselves, what error of theirs am I also guilty of? This practice instantly shatters the illusion of our own moral superiority and replaces condemnation with a sobering recognition of shared fallibility. The person who cuts you off in traffic isn't a malicious monster. They are likely a distracted parent, a stressed commuter, or simply someone who made a poor split-second decision, a mistake you have undoubtedly made yourself in different forms. Let's apply this directly to a source of daily friction. Imagine a coworker who consistently fails to meet deadlines on a shared project, causing you significant stress and extra work. The easy, automatic reaction is to label them as lazy, incompetent, or disrespectful. This judgment fuels resentment, makes interactions tense, and poisons the work environment. Now activate the affirmation, I see the humanity in everyone. This prompts you to pause and genuinely consider what might be happening in their world. Perhaps they are struggling with a hidden health issue, caring for a sick family member, or are completely overwhelmed by responsibilities you aren't aware of. Maybe they lack the specific training or organizational skills for the task and are too embarrassed to ask for help. This isn't about making excuses for their behavior, it's about understanding its root cause. This understanding doesn't force you to accept poor performance, but it completely transforms how you address it. Instead of confronting them with accusation and frustration, you can approach them with curiosity and a desire to help. A conversation that begins with, I've noticed the deadlines have been a challenge, and I'm wondering if there's something going on or some way I can support you, is infinitely more productive and humane than one that starts with, you're always late and it's making my life miserable. The first approach seeks a collaborative solution, the second only deepens the conflict. This practice is the ultimate tool for de-escalating personal conflicts as well. In a heated argument with a partner, it is incredibly difficult to remember their humanity when you feel attacked or misunderstood. Yet, this is precisely the moment the affirmation holds the most power. Silently reminding yourself, I see the humanity in you, forces you to look past the angry words and see the wounded, scared, or frustrated person standing before you. It allows you to hear the underlying need for connection, respect, or safety that is being expressed, however poorly, through the conflict. This shift doesn't mean you become a doormat. It means you engage from a place of strength and compassion rather than defensive ego. You stop trying to win the argument and start trying to understand the person. This is how you break the toxic cycle of blame and retaliation, paving the way for genuine resolution and a stronger bond. Cultivating this world, you build a profound and palpable form of quiet dominance. when you are no longer easily offended, quick to judge, or perpetually frustrated by the flaws of others, you exude a steady, unflappable calm. People sense that you are not a source of petty drama or reactive emotion. They feel seen and understood in your presence, even when you must deliver difficult feedback or hold a firm boundary. This fosters immense loyalty and trust. Leaders who operate from this principle don't command respect through fear. They inspire it through their unwavering fairness and their ability to connect with the core humanity of everyone on their team. This affirmation, therefore, is not a soft skill, it is a strategic one. It dramatically reduces the interpersonal stress and emotional drain that comes from constantly battling against others in your mind. It frees up enormous mental energy previously wasted on resentment and allows you to channel that focus into productive action and meaningful connection. By choosing to see the shared spark of reason in every person you meet, you don't weaken your position, you elevate it, grounding your authority in a deep, empathetic wisdom that is both rare and irresistibly compelling. Building directly from our commitment to purposeful action and shared humanity, we come to a profound truth that governs every other aspect of our lives. Time is my most precious resource. This affirmation is the practical application of one of the most famous and misunderstood Stoic practices, memento mori, the remembrance of death. To the modern ear, this can sound dark or morbid, a fixation on the macabre. But for the Stoics, it was the ultimate tool for breathing vibrant life and urgency into every single day. Remembering that you and everyone you know will one day die is not a cause for despair. It is the most powerful incentive to stop postponing your life. It's the mental jolt that shatters complacency and forces you to ask with stark clarity, if my time is limited, and it is, am I spending it on what truly matters? This isn't about a frantic, fearful hustle. It's about a calm, deliberate focus, ensuring that your most finite asset, your time, is invested, not just spent, in pursuits that align with your deepest values. No one explored this idea with more piercing insight than the Roman philosopher Seneca in his brilliant essay on the shortness of life. He begins with a statement that still rings true 2,000 years later. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. He observed that life is long enough if you know how to use it, but that most people are profoundly wasteful with their days. They squander their time on trivialities, on the demands and dramas of others, or on pursuing empty pleasures that leave no lasting mark. He poetically describes how we are all frugal with our money and property, guarding them carefully, yet we are spendthrifts with our time, the one thing we can never get back. We act as if we have an endless supply of tomorrows, and in doing so, we fritter away the very substance of our lives. This affirmation, time is my most precious resource, is the modern distillation of Seneca's warning. It's the daily reminder to stop living on autopilot and to start making conscious, value-based choices about where your hours and energy go. Let's translate this from ancient wisdom into a tangible modern strategy. The first and most crucial application is the practice of ruthless prioritization. Every morning or the night before, take a few moments to define your one or two most important tasks, the ones that, if accomplished, would make the day a meaningful step forward in your life's mission. These are your big rocks, the activities that align with your core virtues of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Then you must guard the time for these priorities with fierce determination. This inevitably means learning the powerful two-letter word that so many of us struggle with, no. You must become skilled at saying no to requests, invitations, and distractions that do not serve your central purpose. That unimportant meeting, that casual scroll through social media, that tendency to get drawn into other people's emergencies, each of these is a small withdrawal from your finite account of time. The person with quiet dominance understands that saying no to a triviality is, in fact, saying a resounding yes to their own purpose and peace. This mindset is also the ultimate antidote to procrastination. Procrastination is rarely about laziness. It's typically a symptom of fear, perfectionism, or feeling overwhelmed by a task's magnitude. But when you hold the memento mori perspective, you realize that delaying a meaningful action is a form of self-betrayal. You are stealing time from your future self, who may not have the same energy or opportunity. The affirmation reframes the task. Instead of seeing a difficult project as a source of anxiety, you see it as a precious opportunity to express your capability and move closer to your goals now, in the only time you're guaranteed to have the present. This creates a gentle but persistent urgency that propels you into action, not from a place of panic, but from a place of profound respect for the gift of the current moment. You start that workout today, you have that hard conversation now, you draft the first page of that book this morning, because someday is a myth, all you ever truly possess is today. Consider the profound impact this has on your daily interactions and energy management. How much mental space is consumed by worrying about past mistakes or anxiously speculating about future problems? Both are colossal wastes of your precious present moment resource. The practice of remembering death anchors you firmly in the now. It teaches you to fully inhabit the conversation you are having, the work you are doing, the walk you are taking, without your mind drifting to irrelevant concerns. This focused presence is a hallmark of quiet dominance. People feel it when you are truly listening to them, not just waiting for your turn to speak. Work benefits from your undivided attention, producing higher quality results in less time. And you yourself experience a richer, more vivid life because you are actually there to live it, not lost in mental time travel to moments you cannot change or control. To cement this affirmation into your life, adopt a simple but powerful ritual. At the end of each day, conduct a brief time audit. Look back over your waking hours and honestly assess where your time went. Categorize your activities. How much was invested in your core priorities and values? How much was wasted on distractions, mindless consumption, or things you felt obligated to do but that held no real meaning for you? Don't judge yourself harshly, simply observe. This audit is like reviewing your financial statement. It provides the data you need to make smarter investments tomorrow. For a more visceral practice, try this. First thing in the morning, as you sip your coffee or tea, take 60 seconds to quietly reflect. This day could be my last. If it were, how would I want to spend it? What one thing would I absolutely want to accomplish or express? This isn't meant to create fear, but to bring a beautiful, clarifying focus to your intentions. It instantly separates the urgent from the important and the trivial from the essential. When you live by the principle that time is your most precious resource, you cultivate a quiet dominance that is both highly productive and deeply peaceful. You stop being a passive participant in your own life, buffeted by the demands and schedules of others. You become the active architect of your days. Your increased productivity isn't for the sake of busyness, but for the sake of purpose, creating a life that reflects who you are and what you value. This disciplined use of time commands a quiet respect from those around you, as they witness your focus and your refusal to be drawn into time-wasting dramas or trivial pursuits. You are not hurried, you are deliberate. You are not busy, you are effective. This conscious stewardship of your moments ensures that when you inevitably reach the end of your life, you will be able to look back not with a bitter sense of shortage, but with the serene satisfaction of a life fully and meaningfully lived, a life where your most precious resource was spent on what truly mattered. This ninth affirmation, I accept what I cannot change, brings us to the very heart of Stoic tranquility, the art of yielding gracefully to the inevitable flow of life. It is the practical embodiment of what philosopher William Irvine would later call the Stoic reserve clause, where you act with your fullest effort toward a goal, while simultaneously accepting that the ultimate outcome is not entirely in your hand. This concept will feel familiar to many, echoing the timeless serenity prayer used in various wisdom traditions. to have the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. The Stoics were the original architects of this profound wisdom. They understood that our suffering arises not from the events themselves, but from our rigid resistance to them. To fight against an unchangeable reality is like trying to push back the ocean's tide with your bare hands. It is a guaranteed path to exhaustion, frustration, and despair. This affirmation is the decision to stop pushing, to stop wasting your precious life force on a battle you cannot win, and to redirect that energy toward the shores of your own response that you can shape and fortify. It is absolutely critical to distinguish this Stoic acceptance from mere passivity or resigned defeat. Acceptance is not giving up. It is waking up to what is actually true so you can engage with reality more effectively. A passive person sees a storm coming and does nothing, hoping it will pass them by. A Stoic who practices acceptance sees the same storm, acknowledges they cannot stop the rain or the wind, and then immediately gets to work securing the shutters, moving valuables to higher ground, and preparing a safe space to wait it out. Acceptance is the clear-eyed starting point for all intelligent action. It is the moment you stop arguing with reality and start working creatively within its constraints. This is where quiet dominance finds its power, not in a loud, forceful battle against externals, but in a calm, strategic adaptation to them, preserving your energy and focus for the domains where you can actually make a difference. Consider a powerful modern example that touched all of our lives, the global pandemic. When lockdowns began and the world seemed to turn upside down, there were two common reactions. One was a state of constant resistance, raging against the restrictions, denying the severity of the situation, and exhausting oneself in a futile mental battle against a global reality. The other, the Stoic response, was to first accept the new, unavoidable circumstances. This didn't mean agreeing with every policy or liking the situation. It simply meant acknowledging that this was the current reality of the world. From that place of clear-eyed acceptance, energy was freed up for intelligent adaptation. People started learning new digital skills to work remotely. They found creative ways to maintain social connections through video calls. They explored hobbies at home, and they supported their local communities. They accepted the reality of the virus and the necessary public health measures, and they then focused their efforts on the one thing they could always control: how they chose to live within that new paradigm. Their quiet dominance was demonstrated by their resilience and adaptability, not by their volume of complaint. This principle applies just as powerfully to personal and unavoidable hardships, such as a sudden diagnosis of a chronic illness. The initial shock is a natural human response, but after that wave of emotion passes, the fork in the road appears. One path is paved with resistance. Why me? This isn't fair. I refuse to accept this. This mindset leads to a bitter, exhausting war with one's own body, a state of perpetual anger that only compounds the suffering. The other path, guided by the affirmation "I accept what I cannot change," involves a courageous and compassionate acknowledgement of the new reality. I have this condition. I cannot wish it away. This is now a part of my life's landscape. This acceptance is the first step toward empowerment. It allows a person to stop fighting the diagnosis and start managing it with clarity, researching treatments, adjusting their lifestyle, and finding new ways to live a meaningful and joyful life within their new parameters. The illness itself may not change, but the individual's relationship to it transforms from one of adversarial struggle to one of strategic coexistence, freeing up immense mental and emotional resources for living well. The emotional stability that springs from this practice is a direct source of your quiet dominance. When you are no longer thrown into internal turmoil by every traffic jam, every rainy day, every cancelled plan, or every piece of criticism from someone whose opinion you cannot change, you conserve an enormous amount of psychological energy. This energy is then available for what truly matters: your purposeful work, your deep relationships, and your own growth. people will begin to notice your unflappable composure. In a crisis, while others are panicking and resisting the facts on the ground, you will be the one who calmly assesses the situation, accepts the new constraints without drama, and begins formulating a practical plan. This ability to navigate life with grace and resilience, to bend without breaking in the face of inevitable storms, is perhaps one of the most attractive and commanding qualities a person can possess. It shows a deep understanding of how the world works and a profound trust in your own capacity to meet it, not as you wish it were, but as it actually is. This 10th affirmation, "My character is my legacy," shifts our focus from the immediate present to the enduring echo of our lives, anchoring our sense of purpose in something far more permanent than any temporal achievement. The Stoics held an unshakable conviction that the only thing of true, lasting value is the quality of our moral character, the sum total of our virtues enacted through a lifetime of choices. Wealth erodes, fame fades, and accomplishments are eventually surpassed or forgotten, but the integrity of a single human being can resonate through centuries, inspiring generations long after they are gone. This affirmation is a powerful reminder that we are, in every moment, crafting our final testament to the world. It asks us to live with the end in mind, not in a morbid sense, but with the inspiring question, when people speak of me after I am gone, what will they say about the person I was? The answer to that question is not found in a eulogy that lists possessions or professional titles, but in the stories told about our kindness, our honesty, our courage, and our unwavering commitment to doing what was right, especially when it was difficult. To understand the sheer power of this principle, we need look no further than the legendary figure of Cato the Younger, a Roman senator whose life and death became the ultimate Stoic exemplar of integrity. Cato was a political opponent of Julius Caesar, and he spent his entire career fighting against what he saw as Caesar's tyrannical erosion of the Roman Republic. When Caesar ultimately emerged victorious in the civil war, Cato was faced with a choice. He could surrender, swear allegiance to the new dictator, and likely be granted a position of power and comfort. Instead, he chose to take his own life, believing that living under a tyranny was a fate worse than death. The historical accounts describe him spending his final night in philosophical discourse, reading Plato's Phaedo on the immortality of the soul before calmly falling on his sword. His death was not an act of despair, but a final, definitive statement of his principles. He died as he had lived, in complete alignment with his virtues. While Caesar's military victories are detailed in history books, it is Cato's character that became a North Star for Stoics and Republicans for millennia. The poet Dante, centuries later, would place Cato as the solitary guardian of the entrance to purgatory, a symbol of indomitable moral freedom. His legacy wasn't a conquered territory or a political reform. It was the unassailable fact of his character, a standard against which others would measure their own choices for ages to come. Now, you and I are unlikely to face a choice as dramatic as Cato's, but the underlying principle applies with equal force to our everyday lives. This affirmation, "My character is my legacy," is what ensures consistency between our private and public selves. It's the internal compass that guides you to tell the truth even when a lie would be easier and go unnoticed. It's the force that compels you to return the extra change a cashier accidentally gave you, not because anyone is watching, but because you are. It's what makes you treat the janitor with the same respect you show the CEO, because your character is not a performance for an audience. It is your default state of being. This consistency is the bedrock of trustworthiness. People may be impressed by your intelligence or your accomplishments, but they will only truly trust you when they see that your actions are reliably guided by a strong moral core, regardless of the situation or who is present. This kind of trust is not easily given, and once earned, it becomes your most valuable social asset, opening doors and forging bonds that mere competence never could. In a professional context, this builds a form of influence that is both profound and unforced. Consider two managers. One is brilliant and driven, achieving impressive results but known for cutting corners, taking credit for subordinates' work, and flying into rages when under pressure. The other is consistently fair, gives credit freely, admits mistakes, and remains calm during crises. The first manager may be feared and obeyed, but the second is trusted and followed. The team working for the manager of strong character will be more loyal, more collaborative, and more willing to go the extra mile because they know their leader operates from a place of integrity. This manager's legacy won't just be the projects they completed. It will be the culture of respect and psychological safety they cultivated, and the people they mentored and elevated. Their quiet dominance comes from the fact that their authority is not imposed from a title, but earned through the daily demonstration of their character, inspiring others through their example rather than commanding them through fear. Ultimately, embracing this affirmation liberates you from the exhausting pursuit of external validation. When your primary goal is to build a legacy of good character, you are no longer thrown off course by every critique or desperate for every piece of praise. Your self-worth becomes internally generated and therefore unshakable. You can face failure with grace because a failed project does not define you. The integrity and courage you showed in the attempt does. You can handle success with humility because the achievement itself is secondary to the virtuous manner in which it was pursued. This is the foundation of a lasting, respected presence. People are drawn to those who seem whole and complete in themselves, whose actions are not for show but are an authentic expression of who they are. By focusing on your character as your legacy, you ensure that your greatest impact on the world comes not from what you did, but from who you were, a person whose life, in all its quiet integrity, became a silent invitation for others to live with the same courage, justice, and honor. This 11th affirmation, I seek wisdom in all things, moves us from the foundations of character into the active, lifelong engine of growth that fuels a truly dominant mind. While the previous affirmations establish the what and the why of our actions, our control, our virtue, our purpose, this one focuses on the how. It is the commitment to the relentless pursuit of understanding, a dedication to seeing the world, ourselves, and our place in it with ever-increasing clarity. For the Stoics, wisdom was not merely the accumulation of facts or the possession of a high intellect. It was the supreme, practical virtue of knowing what is good, what is bad, and what is truly indifferent. It is the discernment to navigate the complexities of life with a compass calibrated to truth, enabling you to make choices that are not just smart, but right, not just effective, but virtuous. This affirmation is your vow to become a perpetual student of life itself, embracing every experience, every interaction, and even every failure as a potential classroom for your development. This pursuit is deeply rooted in a tradition far older than Stoicism itself, echoing the most famous declaration of Socrates, who stated that the unexamined life is not worth living. Socrates spent his days in the Athenian marketplace not lecturing, but questioning, probing the assumptions of politicians, poets, and craftsmen, relentlessly exposing the gaps between what people claimed to know and what they actually understood. His mission was not to provide answers, but to ignite a love for the quest for truth, a love he called philosophy, the literal love of wisdom. The Stoics embraced this Socratic spirit wholeheartedly. They believed that our greatest errors in judgment, our moments of anger, our episodes of anxiety, and our destructive impulses all stem from a form of ignorance, a mistaken belief about what is truly good for us. We chase money, status, or pleasure thinking they will bring us happiness, ignorant of the Stoic truth that only virtue can provide it. We flee from hardship and criticism, ignorant of the fact that these are the very challenges that forge our strength and character. To seek wisdom, therefore, is to actively dispel this fog of misjudgment, to correct the faulty maps we use to navigate our lives. Let's translate this lofty ideal into tangible, daily practice. One of the most direct paths is through the deliberate consumption of challenging material. This doesn't mean you need to lock yourself in a library with dusty scrolls, but it does mean intentionally feeding your mind with ideas that stretch your thinking. Carving out just 20 minutes each day to read a page of Marcus Aurelius, a passage from Seneca, or a modern interpretation of Stoic principles is a powerful act of wisdom-seeking. It's like having a daily coaching session with the most profound minds in history, recalibrating your perspective before the day's challenges even begin. But reading is only half the equation. The other, more demanding half is the practice of seeking and truly receiving feedback. This is where wisdom-seeking meets courage. It involves proactively asking trusted colleagues, "Where could I have improved in that presentation?" Or inviting a loved one to share, "In what ways could I be a better partner or friend?" This requires immense humility, to sit with the discomfort of critique without becoming defensive, to sift through the feedback for the golden nugget of truth that can help you grow, even if it's delivered imperfectly, beyond external sources. The most potent classroom for wisdom is often your own lived experience, particularly your mistakes and setbacks. Every error in judgment, every project that failed, every word spoken in haste that you later regretted, these are not just embarrassments to be forgotten. They are data points. The wise person conducts a post-mortem on these events without self-flagellation. They ask with calm curiosity, "What belief led me to that action? What did I misjudge? What lesson is embedded in this failure that will make me wiser tomorrow?" A business leader who loses a key client can choose to blame the market or the client's unreasonableness, or they can seek wisdom by asking, "Did we truly understand their need? Was our communication clear? What does this teach us about our service model?" This reflective practice transforms stumbling blocks into stepping stones, ensuring that you never truly lose as long as you are learning. This commitment to lifelong learning is what builds a quiet dominance that is both insightful and humble. When you are constantly seeking to understand more, you naturally develop a broader, more nuanced perspective on any situation. You'll become less likely to jump to conclusions or to see complex issues in simplistic, black and white terms. In a team conflict, for instance, the unwise person immediately picks a side, fueled by partial information and personal bias. The person seeking wisdom, however, pauses to ask questions, to understand the motivations and constraints of each person involved, to see the systemic factors that may have contributed to the problem. This broader perspective allows you to identify solutions that are not just quick fixes, but are genuinely insightful and sustainable. Your decisions cease to be reactive and become profoundly strategic because they are informed by a deeper understanding of cause and effect, of human nature, and of long-term consequences. Furthermore, this pursuit inherently cultivates humility, a quality that is the very essence of quiet strength. The more you learn, the more you become aware of the vast expanse of what you do not know. This realization prevents the arrogance that so often undermines leaders and creates distance in relationships. You stop needing to have all the answers and become more comfortable saying, "That's a great question, I don't know, but I will find out." You start listening more and talking less, understanding that you can learn from anyone regardless of their status or background. This combination of deep insight and genuine humility is magnetic. People are drawn to those who are both competent and approachable, who lead not from a pedestal of infallibility but from the shared ground of a common journey toward understanding. Your quiet dominance, therefore, is not expressed in having all the right answers, but in asking the most insightful questions and in demonstrating a relentless, graceful commitment to growing wiser with each passing day. This 12th affirmation, "I am resilient in the face of adversity," is the direct application of all the principles we've explored so far, transforming you from someone who understands Stoic theory into someone who embodies Stoic strength when life becomes difficult. Resilience isn't about avoiding hardship or never feeling pain. It's about possessing a deep-seated elasticity of spirit, a quality the Stoics called apatheia, not apathy, but a state of mind where your inner peace is not overthrown by destructive passions. It is the quiet knowledge that you have within you the resources to withstand any storm, not because the storm isn't powerful, but because your foundations are unshakable. This affirmation is the mental refrain that activates your inner citadel, reminding you that adversity is not a signal to collapse, but an invitation to demonstrate the very strength you've been cultivating all along. A primary technique for building this resilience is the Stoic practice we touched on earlier, known as premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. While we discussed it in the context of gratitude, its power is perhaps most profoundly felt here in forging mental toughness. This isn't about pessimism or fostering a sense of dread. It's a form of psychological inoculation. By consciously and calmly imagining the worst-case scenarios that could befall you, the loss of a job, the end of a relationship, a financial downturn, even a serious illness, you perform a crucial mental exercise. You walk through the scenario in your mind not to scare yourself, but to prove to yourself that you could endure it. You strategize your response. You recognize that even in that imagined worst case, your core capacity to choose your attitude, to act with virtue, and to find meaning would remain intact. The philosopher Seneca, who constantly premeditated his own exile and death, wrote, "He who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." When you've already faced the monster in the safe confines of your own mind, its appearance in real life loses much of its terror. To see this in action, look no further than the world of elite athletics, where Stoic principles are increasingly the secret weapon of champions. Consider a professional quarterback who, throughout the week, mentally rehearses not only perfect passes and game-winning drives, but also throwing interceptions, fumbling the ball, and facing a hostile crowd. He isn't practicing failure, he is building resilience. By premeditating these potential adversities, he robs them of their shocking power. When an interception actually happens during the game, he doesn't spiral into a panic or self-recrimination. The event feels familiar, almost expected. His heart rate stays manageable, his mind stays clear, and he can immediately shift his focus to the next defensive series, his composure unbroken. This is quiet dominance on the field. The player who remains steady and strategic after a major setback is far more intimidating and effective than the one who celebrates every success with excessive flair. His resilience becomes his most formidable asset. This principle applies with equal force in the high-stakes arena of entrepreneurship. The journey of building a company is a relentless series of adversities, product failures, funding rejections, key employees leaving, and aggressive competition. Entrepreneurs who thrive are not those who are blindly optimistic, but those who practice a form of business stoicism. They conduct pre-mortems on their projects, asking, what are all the ways this could fail? By identifying these potential failures in advance, they can build contingency plans and, more importantly, fortify their own psychological readiness. When a crucial investor pulls out at the last minute, the resilient founder doesn't see it as a catastrophic, unforeseen disaster. Because they had premeditated this possibility, they can lean on their preparation, recalibrate their strategy, and communicate a steady, confident resolve to their team. Their quiet dominance is demonstrated by their refusal to be rattled, which in turn inspires immense confidence in their employees and backers, proving that the leader's stability is the company's greatest asset. This process of facing adversity head-on is what the Stoics called the transformative power of obstacles. Every challenge you endure and overcome doesn't just prove your strength, it actively forges a stronger version of you. The Roman poet Virgil captured this beautifully with the phrase per aspera ad astra, through hardships to the stars. Each difficulty is like a rep in the gym for your character. You would not expect to build physical muscle without resistance. In the same way, you cannot build resilience, courage, or wisdom without the resistance provided by life's inevitable adversities. When you affirm, "I am resilient in the face of adversity," you are shifting your entire perspective on hardship. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this preparing me for? How is this making me tougher, wiser, and more compassionate?" A professional setback becomes a lesson in humility and a catalyst for acquiring new skills. A personal loss deepens your capacity for empathy and clarifies what you truly value. The adversity itself becomes the raw material for your own evolution. Ultimately, this cultivated resilience is what makes your quiet dominance so palpable and commanding to others. It's one thing to be confident when everything is going your way. It's an entirely different level of power to remain composed and purposeful when everything is falling apart. People are naturally drawn to this stability. In a crisis, while others are succumbing to fear, anger, or despair, the resilient individual becomes a calm center of gravity. They don't need to shout orders or assert their authority loudly. Their mere presence, steady, focused, and unbreakable, commands respect and calms the chaos around them. This isn't a performance, it's the authentic expression of an inner fortitude that has been deliberately built through practices like premeditation and a philosophical reframing of struggle. Your resilience becomes your silent testament, proving that you cannot be broken by external pressure, and in doing so, you earn a form of admiration that is far deeper and more enduring than any acclaim won through mere success. And so we come to an affirmation that serves as the grand synthesis of the entire Stoic worldview, a principle that ties all the others together into a single, harmonious way of being. I live in accordance with nature. At its heart, this is the Stoic conviction that a good life is one lived in alignment with the rational, interconnected order of the universe. To live according to nature doesn't mean retreating to the wilderness, but rather understanding and embracing our unique role as rational beings within a vast, purposeful cosmos. The universe operates according to immutable laws of physics and cause and effect, and human flourishing, the Stoics argued, comes from applying our own highest faculty, reason, to navigate that reality with wisdom and virtue, rather than futilely raging against its inherent structure. This affirmation is the ultimate acceptance of what is, coupled with the proactive intention to play our part beautifully within the grand scheme. The founder of Stoicism himself, Zeno of Citium, established this as the core of the philosophy after being inspired by the teachings of Socrates. He proposed that the ultimate goal of life, the very definition of happiness, is to live in agreement with nature. For a human being, this means living virtuously because our nature is fundamentally social and rational. We are designed to use our capacity for reason to make discerning choices, to cooperate with one another, and to contribute to the common good. To act against virtue through injustice, cowardice, or ignorance is therefore to act against our own essential nature, creating an internal state of conflict and disharmony. Zeno taught that by aligning our individual will with the universal will, or the logos, we find our proper place and purpose. This is not a passive submission, but an active, intelligent cooperation with the flow of existence, much like a skilled sailor who doesn't command the wind but learns to set their sails to harness its power for their journey. This ancient wisdom holds profound and immediate relevance for some of the most pressing modern issues we face, starting with our relationship with the natural world itself. The global climate crisis and the rampant overconsumption of resources can be seen as a catastrophic failure to live in accordance with nature. We have operated under the illusion that we are separate from and superior to the ecosystems that sustain us, exploiting them without regard for long-term consequences. The Stoic affirmation calls us back to a relationship of respect and reciprocity. It encourages sustainable practices not as a burdensome sacrifice, but as a rational and virtuous alignment with the natural limits and cycles of the planet. Choosing to reduce waste, to consume more mindfully, and to support environmental stewardship becomes an expression of living in accordance with nature, a recognition that we are one part of a delicate, interdependent whole, and that our own well-being is inextricably linked to the health of the entire system. This principle also offers a powerful corrective to our modern approach to health and the human body. We often treat our physical selves as machines to be optimized or as obstacles to our productivity, pushing through exhaustion, relying on stimulants, and ignoring the body's signals for rest and nourishment. To live in accordance with nature in this context is to honor the body's innate needs and rhythms. It means listening to its demands for sleep, for wholesome food, for movement, and for periods of recovery. It is the understanding that you cannot sustainably burn the candle at both ends, because that violates the natural law of balance. This isn't about achieving a perfect diet or a sculpted physique driven by vanity. It's about the virtue of temperance, treating your physical vessel with the respect it deserves as an integral part of your human nature. When you align your habits with your body's natural requirements, you are gifted with greater energy, clarity, and resilience, which in turn fuels your capacity for virtuous action in the world. Perhaps one of the most relatable applications is in the relentless struggle for work-life balance. The always-on culture of modern professional life, fueled by digital connectivity, often pulls us into a state of constant doing, leaving little room for simply being. This frantic pace is profoundly unnatural. It disregards the essential cycles of activity and rest that govern all of life, from the changing of the seasons to the daily rising and setting of the sun. The affirmation "I live in accordance with nature" provides the philosophical foundation for setting boundaries. It gives you permission to log off, to be fully present with your family, to pursue hobbies that bring you joy, and to ensure you have time for reflection. This is not laziness, it is wisdom. It is the recognition that you are a finite being who requires renewal, and that by respecting your natural limits, you actually become more creative, effective, and sustainable in your endeavors over the long term. A tree that grows too quickly without strong roots will be toppled by the first strong wind. A life that expands in a single direction at the expense of all others lacks the deep, sturdy roots needed for true and lasting success. When you integrate this holistic approach into your daily existence, you cultivate a form of quiet dominance that is both grounded and magnetic. Your life ceases to be a frantic reaction to external demands and becomes a deliberate expression of your values. You move through the world with a sense of poise that comes from knowing you are in right relationship with reality itself. You are not constantly fighting against the current of life, exhausting yourself in resistance. Instead, you move with a graceful efficiency, making decisions that are good for you, good for your community, and good for the world, because you understand that these are not separate concerns. This alignment breeds a deep, authentic confidence that others can feel. People are drawn to those who seem to have their lives in order, not in a rigid, controlled way, but in a manner that appears harmonious and sustainable. Your influence grows not because you are loudly asserting your will, but because the quality of your life, your health, your balance, your purposeful calm, becomes a silent, powerful testament to the wisdom of the philosophy you embody. You become a living example that true power is not found in domination, but in the serene and intelligent art of living in accordance with the nature of things. Building upon this holistic alignment with nature, we now turn our focus to a specific daily practice that has the power to instantly rewire your perception and solidify your foundation of quiet contentment. I practice gratitude daily. This affirmation is the active, living expression of the Stoic recognition that we are surrounded by an abundance of gifts, most of which we have done nothing to earn. The philosopher Epictetus, born into slavery and possessing very little in terms of material comfort, put it with stunning clarity. He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. This is not a passive feeling, It is a disciplined exercise, a conscious training of your attention to spotlight the good that is already present in your life, thereby dimming the distracting glare of what you perceive to be missing. When you make this a daily ritual, you are not engaging in naive positivity. You are performing a radical act of mental archaeology, excavating the countless treasures buried beneath the mundane surface of your ordinary existence. The primary Stoic tool for this is the deliberate exercise of reflecting on your blessings, often recommended as a morning or evening journaling practice. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius began his own private writings with a list of people and qualities he was grateful for, from the gods and his grandparents to his teachers and even his own good health. He was actively setting the tone for his day by first anchoring his mind in a state of appreciation before confronting the immense pressures of ruling an empire. You can adopt a modern version of this with a simple gratitude journal. The key is to move beyond generic entries like, "I'm grateful for my family." Instead, strive for vivid specificity, as this engages the brain more deeply. For example, you might write, "I am grateful for the way the morning light fell across the kitchen table as I drank my coffee." Or, "I am grateful for the unexpected patience my partner showed when I was stressed this evening." Or even, "I am grateful for the functioning warmth of this sweater on a cold day." This practice of hunting for specific, concrete moments of goodness trains your brain to become a detector for positivity, constantly scanning your environment for things to appreciate rather than for threats and lacks. The psychological shift this creates is nothing short of transformative. By consistently focusing on your abundances, you systematically dismantle the engine of discontent that is fueled by constant comparison and wanting. Modern neuroscience and psychology provide robust evidence for what the Stoics knew intuitively. Studies consistently show that a regular gratitude practice increases activity in the brain's hypothalamus, which regulates stress and boosts the production of dopamine and serotonin, the neurotransmitters most associated with feelings of happiness and well-being. It literally rewires your brain to default to a more positive and resilient state. People who keep a gratitude journal report significantly lower levels of stress and depression, better sleep quality, and a greater overall sense of life satisfaction. This isn't mystical thinking, it's a measurable recalibration of your cognitive and emotional baseline. When you affirm, "I practice gratitude daily," you are choosing to feed the wolf of contentment inside you, making it stronger and more dominant than the wolf of endless desire. This cultivated mindset is a profound source of quiet dominance because it makes you virtually immune to the petty frustrations and social comparisons that derail so many. When your inner world is rich with appreciation, external setbacks lose their power to devastate you. A professional rejection still stings, but it doesn't define your entire self-worth because you are simultaneously aware of the abundance of other skills, relationships, and opportunities in your life. You don't crumble when a plan fails because you are grounded in the gratitude for your ability to adapt and try again. This resilience is not loud or boastful. It is a quiet, unshakable knowing that you are fundamentally okay, no matter the temporary circumstances. This inner stability is incredibly attractive to others. People are naturally drawn to those who carry an aura of appreciative calm rather than one of restless striving. Your optimistic yet grounded demeanor is not seen as Pollyannish, but as a sign of deep strength, the strength of someone who cannot be easily knocked off center because their sense of worth is generated from an internal wellspring of thankfulness, not from the fickle validation of the external world. To weave this affirmation seamlessly into the rhythm of your life, consider pairing it with an existing habit to ensure it becomes automatic. The morning ritual is powerful for setting a positive trajectory for the entire day. Before you even check your phone, take 60 seconds to mentally list 3 specific things you are grateful for. This frames your upcoming challenges within a context of abundance, making them feel more manageable. The evening review, however, can be even more potent for solidifying the learning of the day. As part of your wind-down routine, take 5 minutes with a notebook. Beyond listing what you're grateful for, add a Stoic twist. Reflect on one potential hardship you were spared. For instance, I am grateful for the safe drive to work today, which acknowledges the countless things that must function correctly for such an ordinary event to occur. This practice, a gentle form of negative visualization, makes your gratitude for the present moment exponentially deeper and more authentic. It reminds you that the backdrop of your life is not neutral, but is actively supported by a complex web of functioning systems and kindnesses, most of which go completely unnoticed. Ultimately, the daily practice of gratitude is what allows you to fully inhabit and appreciate the life you are building through all the other Stoic principles. It is the emotional and psychological reward for living with virtue, purpose, and resilience. A person who is genuinely grateful for their health is more likely to take care of their body in accordance with nature. A leader who is grateful for their team is more likely to act with justice and fairness. An individual who is grateful for their time is less likely to waste it on impulsive distractions. This affirmation completes a beautiful feedback loop. The more you practice gratitude, the more you notice the goodness that your virtuous actions create, which in turn fuels your commitment to those very actions. Your quiet dominance, therefore, becomes infused with a sense of joyful appreciation. You move through the world not with the stern face of a detached ascetic, but with the warm, magnetic presence of someone who truly sees and cherishes the profound beauty and abundance hidden within the ordinary moments, making your composed strength not just admirable, but genuinely inspiring to all who encounter it. This 15th affirmation, I speak with integrity and listen with empathy, cuts directly to the heart of how we connect with the world and the profound impact our communications have on our inner state and our influence. For the Stoics, speech was not a trivial matter. It was a direct expression of character, a powerful tool that could either build bridges of understanding or burn them to the ground. To speak with integrity is to practice the virtue of honesty in its deepest sense. It means your words align not only with factual truth but with your core principles. You say what you mean, you keep your promises, and you avoid gossip, flattery, and slander. But Stoic communication is never a one-way street. It is beautifully balanced by the complementary duty of listening with empathy, which is the practical application of seeing the shared humanity in everyone. This combination, truthful speech rooted in compassionate understanding, creates a form of communication that is both powerful and peaceful, earning you a level of trust that loud and manipulative tactics can never achieve. The philosopher Epictetus, who trained his students rigorously in the art of living, placed immense emphasis on guarding one's tongue. He warned that our words have immense power to either harm or heal, and that we must be meticulously careful about what we allow to pass our lips. He famously advised, if you devote your time to speaking ill of others, you have likely forgotten how much fault lies within yourself. This isn't about suppressing your voice, but about directing it purposefully. Speaking with integrity means pausing before you speak to ask a few simple but transformative questions. Is what I am about to say true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? This three-part filter, inspired by Stoic principles, creates a crucial moment of choice between an impulsive reaction and a considered response. When you apply this filter, you might find that the cutting remark you were about to make fails on all three counts. It may be true in your view, but it is neither necessary for the situation nor is it delivered with kindness. Choosing silence or a more constructive phrasing in that moment is an act of immense self-respect and social mastery. Listening with empathy is the other, often neglected, half of this virtuous cycle. In our eagerness to be heard, we often listen only to prepare our rebuttal, waiting for the other person to take a breath so we can interject our own perspective. Stoic empathy is different. It is the disciplined practice of fully receiving another person's words without immediately judging, rebutting, or making their experience about ourselves. It is an act of justice, granting them the space and respect to express their reality. This requires what the Stoics called prosauche, or attention, a focused, present-moment awareness on the person speaking. You are not just hearing their words, you are observing their tone, their body language, and the underlying emotion or need they might be struggling to articulate. This kind of deep listening is a gift to both parties. For the speaker, it provides the rare and validating experience of feeling truly understood. For you, the listener, it provides invaluable data about the other person's perspective, allowing you to respond with far greater wisdom and effectiveness. Consider how this affirmation transforms a common workplace conflict. Imagine a team member has failed to complete their part of a project, jeopardizing a deadline. The impulsive, non-stoic reaction might be to immediately confront them with accusation and frustration. You didn't get your work done, and now we're all at risk. This approach puts the other person on the defensive, guarantees a stressful argument, and rarely leads to a productive solution. Now apply "I speak with integrity" and listen with empathy. You would first pause to collect yourself, ensuring you are coming from a place of purpose, not impulse. You then arrange a private conversation and begin by speaking with integrity. This means stating the objective facts without inflammatory judgment. "I noticed the data analysis wasn't included in the shared folder by the deadline we agreed on." This puts our project timeline at risk. Then you immediately shift to listening with empathy, asking an open-ended question. "Can you help me understand what's going on?" You then devote your full attention to their response without interruption. Perhaps they reveal a family emergency or a technical hurdle they were too embarrassed to mention. By listening first, you discover the root cause of the problem, which allows you to work with them on a solution rather than simply punishing the symptom. This approach resolves the immediate issue while strengthening the professional relationship, proving that your authority comes from problem-solving, not fault-finding. In our personal relationships, this practice is the bedrock of intimacy and trust. A disagreement with a partner often devolves into a battle of competing monologues where both people feel unheard and misunderstood. The Stoic communicator breaks this cycle. When your partner expresses upset, your first task is not to defend yourself or correct their facts, but to listen with the sincere goal of understanding their emotional reality. You might reflect back what you hear. "So it sounds like when I worked late without calling, you felt dismissed and unimportant." This reflective listening does not mean you agree with their interpretation, but it demonstrates that you have truly heard and are trying to see the world through their eyes. This act of empathy alone can de-escalate most conflicts. When it is your turn to speak, you then do so with integrity, expressing your own feelings and perspectives using "I" statements rather than accusatory "you" statements. "I felt pressured to finish that project, and I realize I failed to consider how my silence would impact you. My intention was not to dismiss you." This creates a dialogue built on mutual respect rather than a power struggle, fostering a connection that is resilient and deeply secure. Ultimately, this dual practice forges a quiet dominance that is rooted in the unwavering trust you build with everyone around you. When people know that your word is your bond, that you will speak truthfully without cruelty, and that you will always strive to understand their side of the story, your influence grows exponentially. In a professional setting, you become the person others seek out for honest feedback and wise counsel. Your team will follow you not because they have to, but because they know you see and value them as whole human beings. In your personal life, you become a cornerstone of your relationships, a person known for creating a safe space where honest feelings and difficult conversations can happen without fear of judgment or retaliation. This is a dominance that needs no volume, no manipulation, and no posturing. It is earned through the consistent, day-by-day practice of aligning your speech with your virtues and offering the gift of your full, empathetic attention. By mastering this art, you ensure that your presence in any room is felt not for the noise you make, but for the profound respect and clarity you bring to every single interaction. You'll often hear it said that the past is a place of memory and the future is a place of fantasy, yet we spend nearly all of our mental lives shuttling between these two imaginary destinations, paying a heavy tax in anxiety and distraction for the journey. The 16th affirmation, I focus on the present moment, is your declaration of residency in the only time and place where your life is actually happening, right here, right now. This is far more than a modern mindfulness trend. It is a core Stoic discipline for reclaiming your mental sovereignty. The great Emperor Marcus Aurelius constantly admonished himself in his private writings to confine his attention to the present. He wrote, "Don't let your imagination be crushed by life as a whole. Stick with the situation at hand." He wasn't suggesting you ignore the lessons of the past or fail to plan for the future, but rather that you refuse to let your mind be colonized by things that are no longer real or not yet real. Anxiety is almost always a fear of a future that hasn't happened, and regret is a prison built from the bricks of a past you cannot change. This affirmation is the key that unlocks that prison door, allowing you to step into the liberating space of the current moment where your actual power resides. A wonderfully practical technique to cultivate this presence is through a simple exercise in sensory awareness. It requires no special equipment or environment. You can do it anywhere, anytime. The next time you feel your mind spiraling into worry about an upcoming meeting or replaying an awkward conversation from yesterday, pause and consciously drop into your senses. Look around and mentally note 5 things you can see, not just labeling them, but truly noticing their color, texture, and form. Then, listen for 4 distinct sounds, from the obvious hum of a computer to the faint rustle of your own clothing. Move next to touch, identifying 3 physical sensations: the feeling of your feet flat on the floor, the texture of the fabric on your arms, the temperature of the air on your skin. Then find 2 things you can smell, and finally 1 thing you can taste. This sequential grounding in your immediate physical reality acts as an emergency brake for a runaway mind. It forcefully pulls your awareness out of the abstract world of thought and into the tangible, manageable reality of the present. You are not trying to stop your thoughts. You are simply shifting the spotlight of your attention from the mental theater to the sensory stage of the here and now. Another foundational anchor, championed by wisdom traditions across the globe and perfectly aligned with Stoic practice, is breath focus. Your breath is unique because it is an involuntary process that you can also consciously control, making it a perfect bridge between your autonomic nervous system and your conscious mind. When you find yourself overwhelmed by a demanding task or a stressful interaction, take just 60 seconds to focus exclusively on the rhythm of your breathing. Don't try to change it, simply observe the cool sensation of the air entering your nostrils, the gentle expansion of your chest or belly, and the warm release as you exhale. Your mind will inevitably wander, that's its nature, but each time you notice it has drifted to a worry or a plan, you gently, without judgment, guide it back to the anchor of the next breath. This practice of returning again and again is like a bicep curl for your attention muscle. It trains you to disengage from unproductive mental loops and to place your cognitive resources squarely on what is directly in front of you. This single-pointed focus is what Marcus Aurelius was referring to when he counseled himself to do each task as if it were the last thing he was doing, with precise and sincere concentration. The benefits of this present moment focus extend deeply into your performance and sense of peace in everyday activities. Consider a common task like washing dishes. When your mind is elsewhere, it becomes a boring chore to be rushed through while you think about what to watch on television later. But when you apply this affirmation, the experience transforms. You feel the warmth of the water on your hands, you notice the shimmer of the soap bubbles, you focus on the circular motion of scrubbing a plate until it's clean. What was once a mundane duty becomes a small, meditative ritual. This principle scales to any activity, from drafting a report to having a conversation. When you are fully present in a discussion, you listen more deeply, your responses are more thoughtful, and the other person feels truly heard. When you write with complete focus, your work is clearer and more creative because you are not simultaneously draining your mental energy by worrying about the other 10 items on your to-do list. This undivided attention dramatically increases the quality of your work and the efficiency with which you complete it, as you eliminate the massive cognitive overhead of constant context switching. Ultimately, this disciplined focus is what solidifies your quiet dominance in any environment. A mind anchored in the present is a mind that cannot be easily rattled. In a high-pressure negotiation or a critical moment in a project, while others are distracted by fears of failure or memories of past mistakes, you are fully engaged with the data, the people, and the opportunities directly before you. This gives you a significant strategic advantage. Your calm, collected presence allows you to notice subtle cues, process information more accurately, and respond with precision rather than panic. You handle complex tasks with a sense of poise because you are not fragmented. Your entire being is channeled into the single, most important action you can take in that moment. This creates a powerful, magnetic aura of capability. People sense that you are unflustered and entirely in command of your own faculties, which inspires confidence and trust. By mastering the art of dwelling in the now, you ensure that your energy is not dissipated across time, but is concentrated into a laser-like beam of effective action and serene engagement, making you a formidable presence precisely because you are so completely and quietly present. Mastering the present moment ultimately gives you the space to confront one of the most persistent and demanding forces in our lives, the endless pull of our own wants and cravings. This brings us to our 17th affirmation, a powerful declaration of internal freedom. I am the master of my desires. This is the disciplined application of the Stoic virtue of temperance, but it goes far beyond simply refusing a second helping of dessert. It is about fundamentally reshaping your relationship with the entire category of preferred indifference, things like wealth, status, sensory pleasures, and comfort. The Stoics never claimed these things were evil, but they identified the desperate, uncontrolled craving for them as a primary source of our misery. This affirmation is the mental tool you use to sever the invisible leash that your desires have on your peace of mind, ensuring that you enjoy life's pleasures without ever becoming their servant. To understand the sheer power of this principle, we can turn to the life and writings of Seneca, a man who embodied its complexity. Seneca was one of the wealthiest men in Rome, a trusted advisor to the Emperor Nero, living in a world of extreme luxury and political power. Yet his letters are filled with profound warnings against the very lifestyle he was immersed in. He didn't preach from a position of pious poverty. He wrote from the heart of the temptation, making his insights all the more potent. In his letters to his friend Lucilius, he constantly argues that the greatest wealth is a poverty of desires, not a wealth of possessions. He observed that luxury isn't merely about having nice things, but about becoming so accustomed to them that you cannot function without them. He wrote that the man who has become a slave to his elaborate furniture, his exotic foods, and his army of servants has not mastered his environment has mastered him. His peace is conditional, forever dependent on the maintenance of a fragile and complex web of external comforts. Seneca's practice was therefore one of deliberate and regular abstinence. He would periodically practice poverty, living on simple bread and water, wearing coarse clothing, and sleeping on a hard bed. He did this not as a punishment, but as a form of psychological vaccination. By voluntarily experiencing a lack, he proved to himself that he could endure it, thereby robbing real poverty of its terror and, more importantly, robbing luxury of its addictive power over his soul. Let's translate this ancient practice into a modern context. Think about the subtle tyranny of your smartphone, the desire to check for notifications, to scroll through social media, to consume a constant stream of information. This is a form of craving. It's not a craving for survival, but a manufactured desire for novelty and external validation. When you feel that compulsive pull to look at your screen during a conversation or while working on an important task, you are at a crossroads. The impulsive part of your brain is demanding immediate satisfaction. The affirmation, "I am the master of my desires," is the moment you reclaim your sovereignty. You consciously decide to leave the phone in another room or to turn it face down for a focused period of work. Each time you do this, you are not just avoiding a distraction. You are performing a repetition in the gym of your willpower, strengthening your capacity to choose your actions rather than having them chosen for you by a primitive itch for stimulation. This discipline extends powerfully to our financial lives and the relentless engine of consumer culture. Advertisers spend billions of dollars annually to expertly manufacture and inflame desires within us, creating a perceived sense of lack where none exists. They convince us that happiness is one more purchase away, a newer car, a faster gadget, a more fashionable item of clothing. The Stoic response, guided by this affirmation, is to practice a simple but profound strategy of setting deliberate limits. Before any non-essential purchase, institute a mandatory waiting period. For a small item, it might be 24 hours. For a significant expense, it could be 30 days. During this cooling-off period, the initial emotional heat of "I must have this" will often dissipate, revealing the desire for what it frequently is, a fleeting impulse, not a genuine need. Furthermore, make it a regular habit to reflect on your true needs versus your manufactured wants. A true need is food, shelter, health, and meaningful connection. A manufactured want is the specific brand of car, the designer label, or the luxury vacation. This doesn't mean you can never enjoy the wants, but it ensures that you engage with them from a position of choice, not compulsion. You buy the nice thing because you have decided it aligns with your values and you can truly afford it, not because you are trying to fill an existential void with a material object. The quiet dominance that flows from this self-mastery is palpable and deeply respected by others. When you are no longer easily seduced by the latest trends, desperate for social validation through your possessions, or thrown into anxiety by the fear of missing out, you project an image of profound self-containment. In a professional setting, imagine two colleagues are up for the same promotion. One is constantly angling for visibility, visibly craving the title, the corner office, and the public recognition. The other works with consistent excellence, is motivated by the intrinsic value of the work itself, and views the promotion as a preferred outcome but not the sole source of their self-worth. Who appears more in control, who seems more trustworthy and less likely to make desperate, short-sighted decisions? The one who is master of their desire for the promotion commands a quiet, unshakable respect. Their ambition is channeled, not chaotic. It is a conscious pursuit, not a frantic need. This makes them a more formidable and reliable candidate because it is clear they are driven by principle, not by a hungry ego that could be manipulated or broken under pressure. Ultimately, this affirmation is the key to unlocking a happiness that is immune to the fluctuations of fortune. If your happiness is dependent on acquiring a certain level of wealth, you will be perpetually anxious about losing it. If it is tied to achieving a certain level of fame, you will be forever vulnerable to criticism and obscurity. But when you declare yourself the master of your desires, you are stating that your contentment is an internally generated state. It comes from the integrity of your character, the quality of your work, and the depth of your relationships, things that are largely within your control. This internal source of joy is unassailable. It cannot be taken from you by a market crash, a negative comment, or a change in fashion. This is the foundation of the most powerful form of quiet dominance, the serene confidence of a person who knows they already possess everything they truly need to be happy, and who therefore moves through the world not as a hungry ghost searching for its next meal, but as a whole and complete human being, free to engage with life's abundance on their own terms. Coming directly from the mastery of your desires, we find a natural progression to a state of profound emotional equilibrium, perfectly captured in our 18th affirmation. I treat success and failure with equanimity. This is the art of meeting the highest peaks and the lowest valleys of life with the same steady, unshaken composure. It is the practical embodiment of the Stoic understanding that both triumph and disaster are, in the grand scheme of your character, ultimately illusory. They are two sides of the same coin, and that coin is not the currency of your true worth. The goal is not to become an emotionless robot devoid of feeling, but to prevent the natural and temporary feelings of joy or disappointment from hardening into permanent states of arrogant inflation or crippling despair. Your quiet dominance is solidified not by the victories you accumulate, but by your unchangeable core stability in the midst of life's relentless ups and downs. To grasp the full power of this affirmation, we must return to the bedrock Stoic classification of preferred and dispreferred indifference. A promotion, a winning lottery ticket, public acclaim, these are preferred indifference. We are allowed to prefer them, to reach for them, and to enjoy them when they arrive. A job loss, a financial setback, a critical review, these are dispreferred indifference. We naturally would choose to avoid them, but the crucial, life-altering distinction is that both categories are indifferent to your moral character and your capacity for virtue. Your worth as a human being is not enhanced by the promotion, nor is it diminished by the job loss. What matters is solely how you navigate both circumstances. Do you become puffed up with pride and entitlement in success, looking down on those who haven't made it? Or do you become bitter, resentful, and defeated in failure, believing the universe has dealt you an unfair hand? The affirmation "I treat success and failure with equanimity" is your mental corrective, the gyroscope that keeps you upright and oriented toward true north, your virtue, regardless of the external turbulence. Let's paint a vivid picture of this principle in a modern professional context. Imagine you've just received a spectacular promotion. You're now the vice president with a significant pay raise, a corner office, and a team of people reporting to you. The initial surge of excitement and pride is a completely natural human response. The non-Stoic reaction, however, is to let that surge define your new identity. You might start believing your own press, becoming more arrogant in meetings, distancing yourself from former peers, and making decisions from a place of newfound power rather than sober wisdom. This arrogance is a fragility disguised as strength. It is entirely dependent on the continuation of that successful title for its fuel. Now contrast that with the Stoic response guided by our affirmation. You feel the genuine pleasure of the achievement. You celebrate appropriately with your loved ones, but you then consciously recalibrate. You remind yourself that this new role is a preferred indifferent. It provides a larger platform and more resources, but it does not make you a better or more valuable person than you were yesterday. You make a point of treating every single person, from the intern to the CEO, with the same fundamental respect. You approach your new responsibilities not with a sense of entitlement, but with a deep sense of duty and a sober awareness of the bigger challenges that now lie ahead. Your quiet dominance shines through in your humility, not in your title. Now flip the script entirely. Imagine you are unexpectedly laid off from that same job. The company is restructuring and your position is eliminated. The shock, the fear, the sting of rejection, these feelings are real and undeniable. The non-Stoic path is to internalize this event as a personal failure, a verdict on your incompetence or worthlessness. You might spiral into weeks of depression, lashing out at family, or hiding from the world in a state of shame. This response hands over all your power to an external event. The Stoic, however, while acknowledging the real practical difficulties and the natural emotional hurt, consciously applies the affirmation. This job loss is a dispreferred indifferent. It is unfortunate, but it is not a catastrophe that defines you. Your character, your skills, your resilience, these remain entirely intact. From this place of equanimity, you can process the event with clear eyes. You allow yourself a day or two to feel the disappointment, and then you get to work. You update your resume, you reach out to your network, you view it as a forced opportunity to re-evaluate your career path. You might even find a strange sense of liberation in the situation. Your quiet dominance is demonstrated by your refusal to be broken, by your calm, methodical, and dignified response to a setback that would leave others emotionally paralyzed. This cultivated balance is what makes you an incredibly reliable and inspiring figure. Whether in leadership or in personal relationships, people are naturally drawn to those whose emotional weather is predictable. A leader who is euphoric and boastful in success but devastated and volatile in failure creates a roller coaster environment for their team, fostering anxiety and uncertainty. No one knows which version of the leader will show up to the meeting, but a leader who meets a major project win with a calm, grateful acknowledgement of the team's hard work, and who meets a project failure with a composed, analytical post-mortem focused on learning, inspires unwavering confidence and loyalty. This leader's team knows that their boss's judgment and support are not conditional on the fluctuating outcomes of the market. They are free to do their best work, to take calculated risks, and to innovate because they are not operating under the fear of their leader's emotional reaction. This stability is a superpower in any collaborative endeavor. Ultimately, the practice of equanimity is what severs the last chains that bind your happiness to the fickle judgments of the external world. When you no longer need success to feel worthy, and you no longer interpret failure as a personal annihilation, you achieve a level of freedom that is both rare and profoundly commanding. Your sense of self is anchored in the slow, steady work of building your character, not in the fleeting highs and lows of circumstance. This does not make you passive or unambitious. On the contrary, it liberates your ambition from the fear of failure. You can pursue audacious goals not because you need the world to validate you with a trophy, but because the pursuit itself is an expression of your virtues, your courage to try, your wisdom to plan, and your justice in wanting to contribute something of value. Your quiet dominance, therefore, is not the loud celebration at the finish line, but the consistent, determined, and graceful stride you maintain throughout the entire race, regardless of the terrain. This 19th affirmation, "I choose my battles wisely," introduces a crucial element of strategic intelligence to your Stoic practice, transforming your approach to conflict from one of reflexive engagement to one of discerning selection. It is the practical application of energy conservation and the virtue of wisdom in the realm of friction and disagreement. The Stoics understood that our time, attention, and emotional resilience are finite resources, and to squander them on every minor irritation or unwinnable argument is to deplete the very strength needed for the fights that truly matter to our character and purpose. This affirmation is your mental filter, a disciplined checkpoint that forces you to pause and apply the dichotomy of control before you charge headlong into a confrontation. Is this battle over something within my control, namely my own judgments and actions? Or is it a desperate attempt to control an external another person's opinion, a corporate policy I cannot change, the slow-moving line at the grocery store? By asking this question first, you immediately disarm a vast number of potential conflicts before they can even begin to drain your precious inner resources. History offers a masterclass in this principle through the strategic brilliance of Roman military commanders, who understood that victory was rarely about winning every single skirmish. A general like Scipio Africanus, who ultimately defeated the legendary Hannibal, did not do so by meeting the Carthaginians' forces in a direct, head-on clash every time they were challenged. Instead, he employed a strategy of patient, selective engagement. He avoided direct confrontation when the odds were unfavorable, focusing instead on weakening Hannibal's supply lines and allies, and choosing the time and place of the final, decisive battle of Zama with meticulous care. He knew that a general who feels compelled to answer every provocation and defend every inch of territory is a general who will be stretched thin, exhausted, and easily outmaneuvered. This is the essence of choosing your battles wisely. It is not cowardice. It is the highest form of strategic intelligence. It is the quiet dominance of the commander who is governed by a long-term plan, not by a reactive ego that cannot bear to be challenged. Now, let's bring this off the ancient battlefield and into a modern professional environment. Imagine a weekly team meeting where a particularly vocal colleague has a habit of dismissing or subtly undermining your ideas. The impulsive, non-strategic reaction is to confront them publicly each and every time, to defend your territory and prove your worth in front of the group. This turns every meeting into a draining battlefield, creating a toxic atmosphere and burning through your emotional energy for the rest of the day. Now apply the affirmation and the Stoic filter. Is your colleague's behavior within your control? No. Is your reaction and your strategy within your control? Absolutely. Choosing your battle wisely here might mean letting a minor slight pass without comment in the moment, conserving your energy and maintaining your composure. It means recognizing that a public, reactive argument is unlikely to change their behavior and is more likely to make you look defensive. The wiser battle might be fought on a different field altogether, perhaps by scheduling a private, one-on-one conversation with that colleague to understand their perspective, or by focusing your energy on building such a strong, data-backed case for your next idea that it becomes difficult to dismiss. You have shifted from being a reactive combatant to a strategic leader, earning respect not for your combativeness but for your poise and your focus on substantive results. The same principle applies with profound power in our personal relationships. A couple might find themselves locked in a cycle of recurring arguments over trivialities: the cap left off the toothpaste, the way one of them loads the dishwasher, a forgotten errand. These are the skirmishes that, if fought with the same intensity as a major issue, can slowly erode the foundation of the relationship, leaving both partners perpetually drained and resentful. The Stoic practice of choosing your battles wisely involves a conscious agreement, often unspoken, to let the small things go. It requires asking, in the grand scheme of our life together, is this particular issue worth the emotional expenditure and potential damage of a conflict? The cap on the toothpaste is an external. The harmony and respect in your relationship is an internal good that you help cultivate. By letting the trivial battle go, you conserve your relational energy for the conversations that truly matter, discussions about shared values, life goals, and emotional needs. This doesn't mean being a doormat. It means being the guardian of the relationship's peace, strategically investing your emotional capital where it will yield the highest return in intimacy and mutual understanding. When you consistently live this affirmation, you cultivate a reputation that becomes a tremendous source of quiet dominance. In a professional setting, you become known not as the person who is easily baited or who argues over every detail, but as the individual who speaks sparingly and with immense impact. When you do choose to take a firm stand, people lean in and listen because they know it is not coming from a place of petty ego or habitual conflict, but from a place of deep conviction and strategic necessity. Your interventions carry more weight because they are rare and well considered. Similarly, in your personal life, you become the calm center in a storm of drama. Friends and family learn that you are not a source of unnecessary friction, and they will value your perspective all the more when you do offer counsel or set a boundary, because they trust that it comes from a place of thoughtful discernment, not impulsive reaction. This carefully cultivated restraint demonstrates that your sense of self-worth is not so fragile that it needs to be defended in every minor interaction. Your power is not proven by the number of battles you fight, but by the profound impact you have when you deliberately and wisely choose to engage. Now we arrive at a profoundly liberating affirmation, one that serves as the ultimate anchor for your self-worth: I am enough as I am. This statement is the culmination of Stoic self-acceptance, a radical embrace of your inherent value that exists completely independent of your resume, your social status, or the ever-shifting opinions of others. It is the personal, emotional embodiment of the philosophical truth that virtue is my only true good. The Stoics argued with unwavering clarity that a flourishing life, what they called eudaimonia, is available to anyone who lives with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. It is not a prize reserved for the wealthy, the famous, or the exceptionally talented. This means that your sufficiency, your core worthiness, is not an achievement to be earned, but a birthright to be recognized and lived out through your character. This affirmation is the daily practice of that recognition, a direct challenge to the modern culture of relentless self-improvement that often subtly communicates you are a project to be fixed, rather than a person to be accepted and expressed. To fully grasp the power of this idea, we can look to the teachings of Musonius Rufus, a Stoic teacher who placed immense emphasis on the inherent equality and capacity for virtue within every person. He argued tirelessly that nobility is not a matter of bloodline or social class, but of character and action. A person's true value, he taught, lies in their capacity for reason and their commitment to living virtuously. He went so far as to say that even a simple, uneducated person who lives with integrity is of greater worth than a wealthy, powerful aristocrat who is corrupt and unjust. This philosophy was revolutionary in the rigidly hierarchical Roman world, and it remains so today. It severs the link between external markers of success and internal self-regard. When you affirm "I am enough as I am," you are channeling the spirit of Musonius Rufus, declaring that your value is not up for a vote. It is a fixed point grounded in your potential for virtue and your humanity, which requires no external validation to exist. This practice becomes your most powerful shield against the twin thieves of peace, insecurity, and social comparison. Consider the mental and emotional energy we expend scrolling through social media, unconsciously measuring our behind-the-scenes reality against everyone else's carefully curated highlight reel. We see a peer's promotion, a friend's dream vacation, an acquaintance's seemingly perfect family, and a quiet voice of lack whispers, "I am not enough." This comparison is a trap because it ties your self-assessment to a race you can never win. There will always be someone with more, who has achieved more, or who appears happier. The affirmation "I am enough as I am" is the conscious decision to step off that exhausting treadmill. It is not a declaration that you are perfect or that you will stop growing. It is the foundational understanding that you are worthy of respect and contentment right now, exactly as you are, with all your current strengths and flaws. Your journey of growth then becomes an expression of your potential, not a desperate attempt to become worthy of love or respect. Integrating this into your daily life requires a deliberate rewiring of your internal dialogue through the practice of positive self-talk. Most of us have a critical inner voice that is quick to pounce on mistakes and highlight shortcomings. This voice might say, "You embarrassed yourself in that meeting," or "You're not qualified for that opportunity." The Stoic practice is not to suppress this voice, but to consciously answer it with the voice of your rational, compassionate self. When the critic speaks, you respond with the affirmation. You might say to yourself, "That presentation was challenging and I made a mistake. I am still enough. I can learn from this and do better next time." This isn't empty affirmation. It is a factual reminder of your inherent worth, which is not contingent on a flawless performance. Another powerful practice is to keep a strength log. Each day, write down one instance where you demonstrated a core virtue. It could be as simple as, "I had the courage to voice a contrary opinion," or "I practiced justice by listening patiently to a frustrated colleague," or "I showed temperance by not reacting to a provoking email." This ritual trains your brain to notice and validate the evidence of your own good character, building your self-worth on the solid ground of your actions and virtues, rather than on the shaky sand of external outcomes. When you truly internalize this sense of sufficiency, it becomes the bedrock of a quiet dominance that is both authentic and magnetic. A leader who knows they are enough does not lead from a place of insecurity or a need to be proven right. They are not threatened by talented subordinates, they are empowered by them. They can admit mistakes without their ego fracturing because their sense of self is not tied to an image of infallibility. They can delegate authority genuinely, share credit freely, and receive criticism openly because their worth is not on the line with every decision. This creates an environment of psychological safety and trust that is incredibly fertile ground for innovation and loyalty. People are not drawn to leaders who are desperately posturing. They are drawn to leaders who are solid, authentic, and secure in themselves. Your quiet dominance in this context is the natural gravity you exert when you are no longer seeking permission or validation from your team, your peers, or your industry. You lead from a place of wholeness, and that wholeness gives others the permission and the safety to be their whole selves as well. This unshakable self-confidence also transforms your personal interactions and your ability to handle rejection or failure. When your self-worth is internally generated, a professional setback or a personal rejection, while painful, does not become an existential crisis. It is an event, not an identity. You can process the disappointment, extract the lesson, and move forward without Chinese letter baggage of self-recrimination. This resilience makes you a more formidable presence in any negotiation or challenging situation, because the other party cannot leverage your fear of failure or your need for approval against you. You are negotiating from a position of strength, not neediness. Your calm assurance communicates that you are there to create a mutually beneficial outcome, not to desperately secure a deal that will finally make you feel valid. This is the ultimate expression of quiet dominance, a power that is not loud or aggressive, but is so deeply rooted in a calm acceptance of your own enoughness that it allows you to engage with the world with grace, integrity, and an authentic strength that effortlessly attracts respect and opportunity. And so we arrive at an affirmation that truly unlocks a superpower for continuous evolution, transforming the very fabric of your daily life into a classroom for your development. I learn from every experience. This is the living, breathing application of the Stoic conviction that the world itself is our school, and every single event that unfolds from the most triumphant victory to the most crushing setback is a potential lesson waiting to be unpacked. It's the ultimate reframe, turning life from a series of things that happen to you into a curriculum designed for you. This mindset doesn't just reduce regret, it virtually eliminates it, because a mistake is no longer a failure to be agonized over, but a data point to be analyzed, a crucial piece of feedback from reality that makes you wiser and more capable for the next challenge you will inevitably face. No one championed this educative view of hardship more powerfully than the philosopher Epictetus, who himself began life as a slave. He didn't just endure suffering, he saw it as his most rigorous teacher. He famously stated, "The school of life is a difficult one, but the foolish are the only ones who refuse to be taught by it." For Epictetus, every obstacle, every difficult person, every moment of frustration was sent not to break him but to train him. He saw hardship as a personal trainer for the soul, forcing him to develop strengths like patience, resilience, and discernment that a life of ease could never provide. When a student complained about being assigned difficult texts, Epictetus didn't lighten the load. He pointed out that an athlete doesn't complain about carrying heavy weights because that is the very process that builds their power. In the same way, he argued, the heavy weights of life's challenges are what build our philosophical and emotional muscle. To affirm I learn from every experience is to adopt this Epictetian lens, to look at a personal or professional difficulty and ask not why is this happening to me, but what is this trying to teach me? To make this more than just a philosophical idea, we need a practical tool to extract those lessons, and one of the most powerful is the practice of a structured debrief. This is a deliberate, post-event analysis you can apply to any significant occurrence in your day. The process is simple but profound. After a key meeting, a difficult conversation, or even a minor friction, take 5 minutes to ask yourself 3 Stoic questions. First, what went well and what virtue did I demonstrate? This forces you to anchor the experience in your character, perhaps noting that you showed courage by speaking up or justice by considering another's viewpoint. Second, what could have gone better and where did my judgment falter? This is not about self-criticism but about forensic curiosity. Did I act on an impulse rather than from purpose? Did I misread the room? Did I assume a negative intention where none existed? And third, and most importantly, what is the one key lesson I will carry forward? This final step transforms the event from a past occurrence into a future asset, ensuring that the experience, whether pleasant or painful, was not wasted. A project that fails becomes a masterclass in project management pitfalls. A successful negotiation becomes a case study in effective communication tactics. This learning mindset is what builds a formidable and adaptable form of quiet dominance, particularly in fast-changing professional environments. Consider 2 employees facing the same corporate restructuring. One sees it as a threat, becoming anxious, resistant to new software, and bitter about altered routines. The other, operating from our affirmation, sees it as a learning opportunity. They dive into the new processes, viewing the initial confusion as a temporary state on the path to acquiring valuable new skills. They learn from the friction, adapting their communication style to new team dynamics. Over time, the first employee becomes increasingly obsolete, their skills and mindset frozen in the past. The second becomes increasingly indispensable, agile, insightful, and perpetually up-to-date because they have turned change itself into their primary teacher. Their dominance isn't loud or entitled. It's the quiet confidence of someone who knows they can learn and master whatever the environment throws at them, making them a stable and invaluable asset in any storm. This principle extends beautifully into our personal relationships, where our most painful interactions often hold our most profound lessons. A recurring argument with a partner can feel like a broken record, a source of endless frustration. But when you apply the lens of "I learn from every experience," the argument transforms into a diagnostic tool. Each conflict reveals information about your own triggers, about your partner's unmet needs, about communication patterns that aren't working. The lesson isn't to win the argument, but to understand the system. Perhaps you learn that you become defensive when feeling criticized, or that your partner hears complaint when you're merely trying to problem solve. Extracting this insight turns a painful fight into a valuable lesson in emotional intelligence and compassionate communication. The next time a similar tension arises, you are no longer a reactive participant. You are a mindful observer equipped with new data and new strategies, able to navigate the conversation with a wisdom that was paid for by your previous tuition. This is how you build quiet dominance in your personal life, not by controlling others, but by mastering your own role in the dynamic, continuously learning and adapting to foster deeper, more resilient connections. This 20-second affirmation invites us into one of the most beautiful and paradoxically powerful expressions of the Stoic character. I practice kindness without expectation. At its core, this is the living embodiment of the Stoic virtue of justice, understood in its broadest sense as our duty to our fellow human beings and our role within the interconnected web of society. Justice for the Stoics wasn't merely about legal fairness. It was an active benevolence, a default orientation of goodwill and helpfulness toward others, simply because they share in the same spark of universal reason. To practice kindness without expectation is to sever the transactional chain that so often governs our social interactions. You are not being kind to get a favor in return, to receive praise, or to build a social debt. You are performing the act because it is good in and of itself, because it is the right thing for a rational and social creature to do. This transforms kindness from a strategy into a principle, and in doing so, it unlocks a form of influence that is both profound and unforced. The philosophical anchor for this is found in the personal writings of the Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who constantly reminded himself that any opposition or frustrating behavior from others should not deter him from his natural duty to be helpful. He wrote, "When you have done a good deed and another has received it, why do you look for a third thing besides these, like a fool to be thought to have done a good deed or to get a reward?" This is a stunningly direct refutation of the ego's desire for recognition. He is saying that the cycle is complete once the good deed is done and received. To add the need for credit or reciprocation is to corrupt the entire act, turning a virtuous expression of your character into a covert form of commerce. Your kindness becomes a product you are selling for the currency of social validation, and when the expected payment doesn't arrive, you are left with resentment. The affirmation, "I practice kindness without expectation," is the mental tool you use to break this cycle, ensuring your actions remain pure expressions of your character, not investments in your ego. Let's bring this principle to life in a modern professional setting. Imagine a colleague is struggling to master a new software program that you happen to be proficient with. The transactional approach would be to consider what you might get in return. Perhaps they'll owe you one, or your manager will notice your initiative. This calculation immediately taints the action with a subtle pressure. The Stoic approach, guided by our affirmation, is far simpler and more powerful. You see their struggle, you recognize your capacity to help, and you simply offer, "I see you're working on that. I've used it a lot. Can I show you a quick trick that might save you some time?" You provide the help clearly and patiently, and then you let it go. You don't linger waiting for effusive thanks. You don't mention it to your boss in your next one-on-one, and you certainly don't hold it over your colleague's head later. The act is its own reward because it was an expression of your commitment to justice and community within your workplace. The quiet dominance here is palpable. You are perceived not as someone who is strategically networking, but as someone who is genuinely competent and secure enough to elevate others without feeling threatened. This builds a deep, authentic trust that no amount of transactional favor trading can ever achieve. Now, extend this principle beyond the workplace to the anonymous interactions of daily life. Holding a door open for someone laden with packages, letting a car merge into your lane in heavy traffic, offering a genuine compliment to a stressed-out cashier, these are all micro-expressions of this same virtue. When you perform these acts without a flicker of thought about what you might get back, you are engaging in a quiet, continuous practice of world building. You are actively making the small corner of the world you inhabit a slightly more benevolent and cooperative place. This consistent, expectation-free kindness creates a ripple effect that is often invisible to you but is nonetheless real. The person you let merge might arrive home in a slightly better mood, treating their family with more patience. The cashier who received your kindness might pass that feeling of being seen along to the next customer. Your influence expands not through a direct line of command, but through a subtle, diffuse network of positivity that you helped initiate. This is a form of quiet dominance that shapes your environment from the ground up, creating a reputation for you as a person of inherent decency, which is one of the most valuable and enduring forms of social capital. Of course, a common objection arises. What about when people take advantage of your kindness? Isn't this a recipe for becoming a doormat? This is where Stoic wisdom provides a crucial distinction. Practicing kindness without expectation does not mean practicing kindness without boundaries. The Stoic virtue of justice is always balanced by the virtue of wisdom. Wisdom is your discernment, your ability to read a situation and understand the difference between helping someone and enabling a harmful pattern. Offering to help a colleague with a genuine skill gap is kind. Allowing that same colleague to consistently dump their responsibilities on you because they are lazy is not kindness. It is foolishness that harms the team and ultimately enables their own poor character. The affirmation does not command you to be kind to the point of self-destruction. It commands you to be benevolent in your intentions and judicious in your actions. You can set a firm, clear boundary with someone while still maintaining a fundamental attitude of goodwill toward them. You are not cutting them off because you are angry they didn't repay you. You are setting a limit because it is the wise and just thing to do for the health of the project and for your own capacity to continue contributing effectively. This ability to be both kind and boundaried is the mark of a truly mature and dominant character. When you internalize this practice, it cultivates a quiet dominance rooted in a profound sense of personal freedom. You are liberated from the exhausting mental accounting of who owes you what. You are no longer monitoring the social scoreboard, growing resentful when the tally seems unfair. This frees up an enormous amount of mental energy that was previously wasted on tracking debts and slights. That energy can then be redirected into creative work, deeper relationships, and your own peace of mind. Furthermore, this approach makes you incredibly resilient to the ingratitude or negativity of others. If you help someone and they are rude or unappreciative, it simply does not land with the same destructive force. Since you never expected a reward, their lack of gratitude cannot take anything away from you. The virtuous act was complete the moment you chose it. Your sense of worth remains intact, rooted in the integrity of your own character, not in the fickle reactions of other people. This emotional stability is magnetic. People are drawn to those who are generous without being needy, who are strong enough to be kind without requiring anything in return. Your influence grows because it is offered freely, not demanded, and in that freedom lies the most compelling and quietly dominant form of power, the power of a person who gives not to get, but because giving is, in itself, the fullest expression of who they are. Continuing our journey inward, we now reach an affirmation that serves as both a shield and a sanctuary in a world that often feels like it's spinning into frenzy. I maintain inner calm amidst chaos. This is the direct pursuit of the Stoic ideal of ataraxia, a state of serene tranquility and freedom from disturbance that remains unshaken by the storms raging outside. It's not about bottling up your emotions or pretending you don't feel stress. It's about cultivating a profound inner stability so that when chaos erupts, a sudden financial crisis, a heated family argument, a high-pressure emergency at work, your mind doesn't become a mirror of the turmoil but remains a clear, still pool from which wise decisions can emerge. This calm isn't passive, it is an active, fortified state of being, the ultimate expression of the quiet dominance we've been building, where your composure becomes your most powerful asset in navigating any storm. To truly grasp the power of this state, we can look to the life of Seneca, who perhaps faced one of the most sustained and psychologically toxic forms of chaos imaginable, serving as an advisor to the Emperor Nero. Day after day, Seneca was in the orbit of a volatile, paranoid, and increasingly cruel ruler whose whims could mean exile or death. He witnessed conspiracies, betrayals, and arbitrary acts of violence, all while trying to impart wisdom and restrain the emperor's worst impulses. Through it all, his letters reveal a man constantly recentering himself, repeatedly affirming the principles that would allow him to maintain his equanimity. He wrote extensively about preparing for disturbance in advance, arguing that we are shocked by chaos because we expect peace to be the default. His practice was to premeditate turmoil, to greet each day by saying, "You may be interrupted, you may be insulted, you may be confronted by pain." By doing this, he was not being pessimistic, he was vaccinating his mind against surprise. When the inevitable crisis with Nero did arise, Seneca's inner calm was not a lucky accident, it was the result of a lifetime of disciplined mental rehearsal. This allowed him to think strategically, to offer counsel when others would have been frozen in fear, and to ultimately face his own forced suicide with a philosophical composure that has echoed through the centuries. Bringing this ancient practice into our modern lives requires tangible tools, and one of the most immediately accessible is the conscious use of the breath. When chaos strikes, our sympathetic nervous system hijacks our body, heart rate accelerates, muscles tense, and our thinking becomes narrow and reactive. This is the biology of panic, but the breath is a direct lever to the autonomic nervous system. The moment you feel that surge of stress, whether from a furious email or a sudden problem, you can deploy a simple technique. Inhale slowly for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, and exhale slowly for a count of 6 or even 8. This pattern, often called coherent breathing, actively stimulates the vagus nerve, triggering the body's relaxation response and signaling to your brain that the emergency is manageable. This isn't just calming, it's a biological intervention that creates the mental space for you to choose your response rather than being chosen by your panic. You are literally using your body to command your mind, reclaiming control from the chaos. Another powerful mental tool for safeguarding your tranquility is the practice of visualizing an inner citadel. The Stoics often spoke of the mind as a fortified place that no external event can penetrate without our consent. You can make this concept vivid by spending a few moments each morning in a quiet visualization. Close your eyes and picture a place of absolute peace and security within you. It might be a serene courtyard, a quiet library, or a still, deep lake at your core. See it in detail: the solid stone walls, the quiet atmosphere, the sense of complete safety. This is your inner command center. Then, throughout your day, when external noise and pressure begin to mount, you can take a microsecond to recall this image. You mentally step inside your citadel, looking out at the chaos from a place of unassailable calm. The shouting colleague, the breaking news alert, the traffic jam, they are all outside the walls. They are real, but they cannot reach the essential you, the observer who remains poised and clear-headed. This practice builds a powerful neuro-association. Over time, the mere act of recalling this image can trigger a physiological shift back toward tranquility, allowing you to engage with the problem from a position of strength, not desperation. The real-world impact of this cultivated calm is what transforms it from a personal wellness practice into a cornerstone of quiet dominance. Imagine two leaders facing the same corporate crisis, a major data breach that threatens the company's reputation and operations. The first leader reacts with visible panic, rushing from desk to desk, barking frantic orders and radiating anxiety. This energy is contagious. It spreads through the team like a virus, leading to hasty decisions, missed details, and a pervasive atmosphere of fear. Now picture the second leader, the one who has practiced this affirmation. They gather the team and their demeanor is steady. Their voice is measured. They acknowledge the seriousness of the situation without themselves becoming frantic. They take a deliberate breath and say, "Okay, let's break this down. What do we know for certain? What are our immediate priorities?" Their calm is not indifference. It is a focused intensity that acts as a stabilizing force for everyone in the room. In that moment, their quiet dominance is undeniable. They are the eye of the hurricane, and people instinctively gravitate toward that stability, trusting their judgment and following their lead. This ability to be the calm center is what earns deep, lasting respect and followership, because it proves that your authority is not dependent on circumstances, but is an unshakable quality of your character. Ultimately, maintaining inner calm amidst chaos is the final, integrative proof that all the previous affirmations are working in concert. You can only remain calm because you have internalized that you control your reactions, not external events. Your peace is undisturbed by others because you know it is not dependent on them. You face obstacles with equanimity because you see them as opportunities. This tranquility is the flower that blooms from the well-tended soil of Stoic practice. It allows you to access your full cognitive and creative resources precisely when they are needed most, turning moments of potential disaster into demonstrations of your highest capability. By making this affirmation a living part of your daily rhythm, you ensure that no matter what tempests the world throws at you, you will always have access to that quiet, commanding space within yourself, a sanctuary of strength from which you can lead, decide, and act with a clarity that not only navigates the chaos but transforms it into a platform for your most effective and influential self. Building directly on the inner calm we've cultivated, we arrive at a declaration that solidifies our emotional sovereignty. I am responsible for my own happiness. This affirmation is the ultimate expression of Stoic self-reliance, a profound recognition that our joy is an internally generated state, not a prize to be won from the outside world. The Stoics argued with unwavering conviction that placing the source of your happiness in externals, a promotion, a partner's behavior, the perfect living situation, is like building your house on a geological fault line. It might feel stable for a while, but the first significant tremor will bring it all crashing down, leaving you feeling like a victim of circumstances beyond your control. This statement is not a burden, it is an immense liberation. It transfers the power to determine your emotional landscape from the unpredictable actions of others and the whims of fate back to the one person you can always count on, yourself. You are moving from being a passive consumer of happiness, waiting for the world to deliver it, to becoming its active architect and producer. This principle finds its most compelling advocate in the life of Epictetus, who arguably had more reason than most to outsource his happiness to externals. He was born into slavery, his body permanently crippled, and lived under the rule of a capricious emperor. He possessed almost none of the things we typically associate with a good life. And yet, he achieved a level of tranquility and fulfillment that has inspired millions. How he realized that his master could chain his body but could not chain his mind. His owner could take his possessions but could not take his character or his capacity to choose his attitude. His fundamental teaching was that we are disturbed not by events, but by the judgments we hold about those events. The cancellation of a vacation is, in itself, a neutral event. The judgment that this is a catastrophe that ruins my summer is what creates the suffering. By taking responsibility for your happiness, you are not denying the reality of disappointment or pain. You are taking command of the narrative you build around it, choosing interpretations that serve your peace rather than ones that amplify your distress. Let's make this powerfully relevant to a common modern scenario: job dissatisfaction. It's easy to fall into the trap of believing, I will be happy when I get that promotion, or I can't be happy until I escape this toxic manager. This mindset makes your emotional well-being a hostage to a future outcome that may or may not happen. The person who affirms I am responsible for my own happiness makes a different calculation. They acknowledge the challenges of their work environment, but they refuse to let it monopolize their emotional life. They take proactive, deliberate steps to cultivate joy now, independent of their job. This might mean dedicating their evenings to a passionate hobby, woodworking, learning a language, volunteering at an animal shelter. That provides a deep sense of mastery and purpose that their day job currently lacks. It means practicing rigorous self-care, not as an indulgence, but as a non-negotiable duty to their well-being, ensuring they get adequate sleep, nutrition, and movement to maintain their physical and mental resilience. They find small, defiant moments of joy throughout the workday itself. A few minutes of deep breathing, a walk during lunch, listening to an inspiring podcast on the commute. Their happiness is not on hold. It is a continuous, internally fueled project that runs parallel to their professional challenges, making them less desperate, less reactive, and paradoxically, more likely to perform well and attract better opportunities. This approach fundamentally reshapes your relationships as well. When you derive your primary sense of happiness from within, you stop placing the impossible burden of making you happy on your partner, your friends, or your family. So many relationship conflicts stem from this unspoken contract. If you loved me, you would know what I need and provide it, thereby making me happy. This is a recipe for resentment and codependency. When you are responsible for your own happiness, you enter relationships as a whole, complete person, not as a half seeking its other half. You offer your joy and contentment as a gift to the relationship, rather than demanding it as a payment. You can appreciate your partner's love and companionship as a wonderful addition to your already fulfilling life, not as the sole source of it. This creates a much healthier, more secure dynamic. You can love more freely because you are not loving from a place of lack. You can have difficult conversations without your entire world collapsing because your self-worth is not dangling from the outcome of a single discussion. Your stability becomes a gift you give to those you love, creating a space of safety and trust that allows the relationship to flourish. The quiet dominance that emanates from this self-contained joy is incredibly magnetic. People are naturally drawn to those who radiate a consistent, positive energy that isn't contingent on the day's headlines or the mood of the office. This isn't a fake, pasted-on smile, but the authentic composure of someone who knows they have an inner wellspring to draw from, no matter how dry the external landscape may appear. In a professional setting, this makes you a highly desirable colleague and leader. You are the one who remains optimistic and solution-focused during a crunch period, not because you are oblivious to the stress, but because you are powered by an internal engine that isn't shut down by temporary pressure. Managers and clients notice this resilient attitude. It signals that you are reliable, emotionally intelligent, and capable of steering others through uncertainty. Your self-reliance becomes a form of quiet leadership, inspiring others to take ownership of their own morale and contributions. Opportunities and promotions tend to flow toward people who are perceived as stable and self-motivated, not toward those who are perpetually waiting for external validation to feel good about their work. Cultivating this internal source requires practical, daily rituals. One powerful method is to create a joy list, a concrete list of simple, accessible activities that reliably bring you a sense of contentment or engagement, entirely independent of other people. This isn't a bucket list of grand achievements, it's a menu of small, renewable pleasures. Your list might include things like spending 20 minutes with a captivating novel, brewing a perfect cup of tea and savoring it in silence, working on a jigsaw puzzle, going for a bike ride on a familiar trail, or listening to a specific piece of music. Keep this list somewhere visible. When you feel your mood dipping or find yourself falling into the trap of thinking your happiness depends on something outside your control, you consciously choose an item from your list and do it. This is a direct, tangible way to exercise your responsibility for your own state of mind. It's a small but powerful act of declaring to yourself, I am not a passive recipient of my emotions, I am an active participant in their creation. Over time, this practice builds a deep, unshakable confidence in your own ability to generate joy, ensuring that your inner light is powered by a generator, not a battery that constantly needs recharging from external outlets. And so we arrive at our final affirmation, the one that completes the circle and gives all the others their ultimate purpose. I leave a positive impact on the world. This is not an optional add-on or a feel-good platitude in Stoicism. It is a fundamental duty, the natural conclusion of a life lived in accordance with nature and virtue. The ancient Stoics called this cosmopolitanism, the profound understanding that we are not isolated individuals, but citizens of a single, universal community. As rational beings sharing in the same spark of the divine logos, we have a responsibility to use our reason not just for our own benefit, but for the common good of all humanity. This affirmation is the daily reminder that your quiet dominance is not an end in itself. It is a force to be channeled outward. It transforms your inner resilience, your self-mastery, and your tranquility into a source of tangible good for the world around you, ensuring that the legacy you leave is not just one of personal strength, but of positive contribution. The roots of this idea run deep, directly to the teachings of the philosopher King Marcus Aurelius. While leading brutal military campaigns on the distant frontiers of the empire, he constantly drilled this duty into his own mind. He wrote in his private meditations, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." He saw himself as a single bee in the vast, interconnected hive of humanity, and he understood that his personal flourishing was inextricably linked to the health and well-being of the whole. His purpose as emperor wasn't to accumulate personal power or glory. It was to serve, to protect, and to improve the lives of the millions in his care. He saw his station not as a privilege to be enjoyed, but as a weighty responsibility to be borne with virtue. For us today, this translates into a powerful reframing of our own roles. Whether you are a CEO, a teacher, a parent, or a neighbor, your sphere of influence is your own small empire. This affirmation asks you to lead it with the same sense of service, asking not what can I extract, but what can I contribute. This commitment to impact manifests in countless ways, both large and small, transforming abstract philosophy into concrete action. On a grand scale, it inspires ethical business practices. The CEO who chooses to pay a living wage, prioritize sustainable sourcing, and create a culture of psychological safety is directly enacting this Stoic duty. They are using their position of power not for personal enrichment alone, but to elevate the lives of their employees and minimize harm to the planet, understanding that true, lasting success is built on a foundation of justice and integrity. On a more intimate, personal level, this might look like the simple, consistent act of volunteering at a local food bank, mentoring a young person in your community, or consistently choosing kindness in your daily interactions. The Stoics were meticulous about small deeds. They believed that character is built in the micro moments, and so is our legacy. Holding a door, listening with full attention to someone who is struggling, offering a genuine word of encouragement, these are not insignificant. They are the individual threads that, woven together, create the fabric of a compassionate society. The quiet dominance here lies in the understanding that you don't need a grand title or vast resources to make a difference. You simply need the consistent will to be a net positive in the lives you touch. To see the power of a single life dedicated to this principle, we can look beyond the famous emperors to lesser-known but equally powerful examples. Consider someone like James Stockdale, the American vice admiral whose story we've touched upon. When his plane was shot down over Vietnam, he was taken as a prisoner of war and subjected to years of brutal torture and isolation. In that hellish environment, he drew directly upon the Stoic teachings of Epictetus to survive. But his application of Stoicism didn't stop at his own personal endurance. He created a covert resistance system within the prison camp, establishing a code of conduct for his fellow prisoners to help them withstand torture, maintain communication, and preserve their dignity. He knew that his duty was not just to his own survival, but to the well-being of his men. He organized exercises, created a tapping code for communication, and took upon himself the brunt of the punishment to protect others. His impact was profound. He literally helped save the sanity and lives of his fellow prisoners. His quiet dominance, forged in the fires of unimaginable hardship, became a lifeline for an entire community, a stunning real-world example of one person's virtuous impact rippling outward to hold a small, broken world together. This final affirmation is what completes your journey to a truly unshakable form of quiet dominance. When your life is aligned with a purpose that extends beyond your own needs and desires, you tap into a profound source of meaning and energy. The inevitable setbacks and criticisms you face lose their power to derail you because they are no longer just personal attacks. They are merely obstacles on a path dedicated to a cause greater than yourself. This purpose-driven focus is what makes your influence so meaningful and lasting. People may forget the specific words you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel, how you helped them, or the standard of integrity you embodied. A leader who is genuinely committed to the common good inspires a loyalty and effort that cannot be commanded. Their team doesn't work hard out of fear, but out of shared purpose and respect for a leader who clearly has their best interests and the greater good at heart. This is influence earned through service, a dominance that is quiet because it doesn't need to announce itself. Its results speak loudly enough. Ultimately, this journey through 25 affirmations culminates in this beautiful synthesis. Your inner fortress of character becomes a lighthouse, not a bunker. The quiet dominance you have been building through self-control, virtue, resilience, and purpose is not meant to be hoarded. It is meant to be radiated. It is the steady, calm presence that de-escalates conflict in a room. It is the compassionate strength that offers help without condescension. It is the ethical conviction that chooses the right path even when it is the harder one. By committing to leave a positive impact, your life becomes a silent invitation for others to do the same. You lead by example, not by force, inspiring those around you through the quality of your character and the consistency of your actions. This is the final and perhaps most important lesson of Stoic quiet dominance, that the most powerful way to shape the world is not to shout over the chaos, but to live in such a way that your very presence makes the world around you a little more rational, a little more just, and a little more kind. And so we reach the end of our journey through these 25 pillars of Stoic wisdom, a comprehensive blueprint for constructing a life of profound, unshakable quiet dominance. It's crucial to see that these affirmations are not a random collection of positive thoughts, but a deeply interconnected system, each principle supporting and reinforcing the others to forge a character of immense inner strength. The journey begins with the foundational bedrock of I control my reactions, not external events, establishing the very arena of your power. This then allows you to define the currency of that power with virtue is my only true good, ensuring your efforts are directed toward what is genuinely worthy. From that stable core, you can then proactively engage with the world, transforming hurdles into fuel with I embrace obstacles as opportunities, and protecting your hard-won peace by remembering my peace is not dependent on others. This entire structure is built upon the conscious stewardship of your most precious asset in time is my most precious resource, and is brought to life through the disciplined engine of I act with purpose, not on impulse. Every other affirmation, from seeing shared humanity to practicing gratitude, from mastering desires to learning from every experience, is a brick laid upon this unshakable foundation, creating an inner citadel that is both a sanctuary of calm and a command center for positive influence. This cultivated quiet dominance is the ultimate antithesis of the loud, frantic striving we so often witness. It is not about being the most vocal person in the room, but about being the most grounded. It's a power that emanates from a deep, internal wellspring of self-mastery, where your sense of worth is so firmly rooted in your own character that you no longer need to seek constant validation from the outside world. This inner stability makes you incredibly resilient to the chaos of external events. Market crashes, critical comments, sudden changes in plans because your emotional center of gravity is located firmly within yourself. You become like a deep-rooted tree in a storm. The wind may howl and the branches may sway, but your core remains unbroken, able to bend without snapping. This is the quality that others find so compelling and trustworthy. People are instinctively drawn to those who provide a calm, steady presence in the midst of uncertainty, who listen more than they speak, and whose actions are consistent with their principles. Your influence grows not because you demand it, but because you effortlessly earn it through the sheer force of your composed and reliable character. Now, the most important step is to move from understanding these ideas to actively living them. You don't need to try and memorize all 25 affirmations at once. That would be like trying to build the entire citadel in a single day. The most effective approach is to select just 2 or 3 that resonate most deeply with your current challenges. Perhaps you're facing a lot of interpersonal friction at work, so I see the humanity in everyone and I speak with integrity and listen with empathy become your daily mantras. Maybe you're feeling overwhelmed by busyness and distraction. Making I focus on the present moment and time is my most precious resource, your guiding lights for the next month. Write your chosen affirmations on a note card you keep on your desk. Set them as a reminder on your phone, or make them the first thing you journal about each morning. The key is consistency. Repetition is the mother of skill, and by consciously bringing these phrases to mind, you are slowly rewiring your neural pathways, training your brain to default to these stoic responses instead of old reactive patterns. To truly cement this practice, integrate it with a simple journaling ritual. Each evening, take just 5 minutes to reflect. Write down one of your chosen affirmations and then briefly note a specific situation from your day where you either successfully applied it or where you see an opportunity to apply it better tomorrow. For example, if your affirmation is "I am the master of my desires," you might write, "Today I felt the impulse to buy a new gadget online, but I paused, remembered my affirmation, and decided to institute a 48-hour waiting period." This small act of self-command felt empowering. This process of reflection transforms abstract philosophy into tangible personal growth, turning each day into a deliberate lesson in building your quiet dominance. It's in these small, consistent victories over your impulses, your fears, and your distractions that the unshakable core of your character is forged, brick by intentional brick. This is not a journey you need to take alone. I would be deeply honored to hear about your experiences in the comments below. Which of these 25 affirmations struck a chord with you? What challenges are you facing, and which Stoic principle are you finding most helpful? Sharing your insights not only solidifies your own learning but creates a community of practice where we can all learn and draw strength from each other's journeys. Your story could be the very thing that inspires someone else to take that first step toward a more resilient and purposeful life. And if you found this exploration of Stoic wisdom valuable, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. By hitting that notification bell, you'll ensure you don't miss our future deep dives into ancient philosophy and practical tools, all designed to help you navigate modern life with greater wisdom, courage, and that profoundly powerful quiet dominance. Thank you for investing this time in your growth, and remember, the power to build an unshakable life of purpose and peace has been within you all along.